Chapter 1. In the thick fog, a dilapidated bus crawled slowly along an endless vast highway. Inside the bus, there were 7 people in total, 3 women, 4 men. They sat in their seats, staring out the windows through the dense mist. Each face told a different story: confusion, bewilderment, fear. But beyond those emotions, their complexions were uniformly pale, ashen. It seemed that along the way, they had endured something terrifying. The bus drove on, until finally it stopped before an ancient, decrepit mansion. The mansion was shrouded in the surrounding fog. Its entire body was pitch black, mysterious, and eerie. The door opened, as if telling the passengers inside, "It's time to get off." The 7 people slowly disembarked. They looked around, their eyes carrying an indescribable dread. Because the driver's seat on this bus, the place where a driver should have been sitting, was completely empty. That's right, this bus had no driver. After the last person stepped off, the bus door closed by itself. Then it continued moving until it vanished into the thick fog. Standing before the pitch-black mansion, the 7 people exchanged glances. They saw each other's expressions, utterly terrible. "Let's go. I think we don't have any other choice." At the critical moment, a thin man in the group spoke up. He wore a pair of dark brown, square-rimmed glasses. His delicate features exuded an unusual calmness. "Really? Do we really have to go in?" Ding Wang Yuning, the beautiful woman with gold earrings, spoke, her voice trembling. She was dressed very lightly, so she felt extremely cold. Her arms wrapped around herself, rubbing incessantly. "What if it's not safe inside?" The others fell silent. At first, they thought this was some malicious prank or a staged show, inviting them to participate. But when they discovered that the bus had no driver at all, everyone sank into deep fear. Although they had all been staunch materialists before, what had happened earlier was truly beyond imagination. "So, do you want to go into the fog instead?" Ning Chishui took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. In truth, his heart was pounding rapidly too. From the moment he received that mysterious letter until arriving at this place, less than an hour had passed. But this 1 hour for his worldview was truly too shocking. "Have you forgotten that fat man who jumped off the bus and fled at the intersection earlier?" At the mention of that fat man, the woman's beautiful eyes instantly filled with terror. Her legs went weak. She nearly collapsed. Earlier, there had been 8 people on the bus. Everyone had suddenly appeared on this bus after falling asleep. Among them was a fat man who kept grumbling along the way, insisting that this must be some inhumane show, inviting them to film an episode of reality television. The fat man spoke impatiently, insisting their phones had been switched, that the driver was actually controlling the bus beneath their feet, and that the fog was just a special effect made from dry ice. Finally, when the bus stopped at some intersection, the fat man directly opened the window, jumped out, and walked alone into the mist. Up to this point, everything was still within the realm of normal. But when everyone reached the next intersection, they discovered something hanging from a lamppost, shrouded in fog. As the bus slowly drew closer, they saw clearly what was dangling from that lamppost. It was the blood-soaked human skin of the fat man who had left earlier. The skin had been peeled off completely intact. Everyone could even see the fat man's twisted, terrified expression, as if he had witnessed something utterly horrifying before his death. And on the lamppost, fresh blood was gushing endlessly. This sight directly terrified the people on the bus. Someone, refusing to believe in the supernatural, pulled down the window, only for a nauseating stench of blood to flood into the bus. Mentioning that fat man made everyone's faces turn extremely ugly. Some even began to vomit. No one dared to approach that fog anymore, so we had no choice but to enter this pitch-black mansion. Ning Chishui took a deep breath. He was scared too, but strangely enough, whether it was seeing the blood-soaked human skin hanging from the lamppost or smelling that thick, coppery stench of blood, his reaction wasn't as intense as the others. Moreover, he felt deeply intrigued by that mysterious letter. What exactly did the letter's owner want to tell him? Led by Ning Chishui, everyone followed behind him, pushed open the iron gate of the pitch-black mansion, and stepped into the front garden. Everything around them was silent, to the point of terror. Everyone couldn't help but huddle closer together. The beautiful woman wearing gold earrings felt someone groping her, but she only frowned and said nothing. Let them grope, she thought. At least it's better than being skinned alive for no reason. And so, they reached the door of the pitch-black mansion. Ning Qiushui knocked. Knock, knock, knock. At the sound of his knocking, hurried footsteps echoed from inside. Those behind him instinctively stepped back a few paces, staring fixedly at the door, as if filled with dread. Creak, the door opened, but the horrifying scene everyone had imagined did not appear. The one who opened the door was a very beautiful, very delicate young girl. She seemed to be only 15 or 16 years old. "You're here? Come in." The young girl spoke, and only then did everyone realize she was actually a boy, a strikingly beautiful boy. But this boy's voice was utterly indifferent, devoid of emotion. Everyone watched as Ning Qiushui followed the boy inside. For a moment they exchanged glances, uncertain whether to follow or not. "It's best if you hurry up and get inside." As the group still hesitated, the boy's voice echoed from within once more. "That mist is very dangerous." The mention of the mist made everyone think of the fat man's gruesome death. Trembling with fear, they scrambled and shoved their way into the room. The villa was spacious, decorated in an old-fashioned style. To the left stood neatly arranged bookshelves, to the right, a wooden staircase leading upstairs. In the center of the lounge area were 3 large sofas. Between the sofas, a charcoal stove blazed. Inside the room, 4 people sat gathered around the stove. They stared into the flames, lost in thought, silent. The atmosphere, in that silence, grew colder and colder. "Excuse me, where is this place? Why have we been brought here? What's with the mist outside in the bus?" Finally, after a moment of thought, Ning Qiushui spoke up, asking these 3 questions. But still, no one answered him. In fact, the 4 people warming themselves didn't even spare him a single glance. At that moment, the bearded man Li Feng, standing behind Ning Qiushui, couldn't hold back any longer. "We're talking to you. Are you all deaf?" His voice was thunderously loud, echoing throughout the room, making everyone's eardrums ache. Finally, the man in the suit, sitting across from Ning Qiushui by the stove, spoke up. "I know you all have many questions. If you can survive and return from the first crimson door, I will give you the answers to those questions." Hearing this, a sense of dread immediately filled everyone's hearts. "Crimson door? What is that?" Ning Qiushui's mind stirred, recalling the mysterious phone call from earlier. He asked the question. The man in the suit didn't even lift his head. He simply pointed toward the 3rd floor of the villa. "Your time is running out. In less than 5 minutes, the crimson door will open. When it does, you will step into the terrifying world inside that door to complete the task written upon it. Once the task is complete, the bus will come to pick you up." As he finished speaking, Yan Yuping, a thin, short woman with a ponytail, asked weakly from the crowd, "What if we don't complete the task? What happens then?" The man in the suit slowly raised his head at this, fixing his gaze directly on Yan Yuping. Those calm, icy eyes made cold sweat break out on Yan Yuping's skin. "You will die, and your death will be unspeakably gruesome." Hearing this, everyone's limbs went limp. They desperately wanted to believe this was all a joke. But the serious expression on the man in the suit's face shattered the last shred of hope in their hearts. "Is there a way not to go?" A young man with dyed blonde hair swallowed hard, as if asking. The man in the suit glanced at him. "Maybe, but it's best if you don't sleep anymore after this." The blonde young man froze. "What? Why?" The man in the suit gave a faint smile. "Because if you don't enter the crimson door to complete the mission, then something from behind that door will come looking for you. No matter where you run, they will find you. And then..." The man in the suit didn't finish, but everyone understood the outcome. Ning Qiushui glanced at the 3rd floor. Finally, he asked the man in the suit, "Before we go, do you have any advice for us?" The man in the suit paused. Then he shifted his gaze to Ning Qiushui. Seeing the unusually calm expression on Ning Qiushui's face, a flicker of barely noticeable approval flashed in his eyes. "Advice, yes. The stories behind the Crimson Door are extremely dangerous, but they always contain more than one path to survival. As long as you find that path, completing the mission and staying alive, won't be too difficult. Ning Shui nodded. Thank you. After saying this, he was the first to step forward and head upstairs. Lu Renfeng, the man with the big beard, watched Ning Shui's decisive move. After a fierce internal struggle, he gritted his teeth and followed. Damn it, little brother. You've got some serious guts. Walking behind Ning Shui, Lu Renfeng muttered in a low voice. Along the way, he had actually been keeping an eye on Ning Shui. It was hard not to. Whether it was when they discovered the fat man's skin, or when they smelled that thick, cloying stench of blood. Ning Shui hadn't reacted much at all. Guts? Ning Shui let out a self-deprecating laugh. Do you think we have any other choice? Lu Renfeng was very tall. Even though he was a step lower than Ning Shui, he was only slightly shorter. Back when we saw that fat man's skin, little brother, you didn't even blink. What did you do before this? What did I do? An assassin. You read too many novels. There aren't that many assassins in real life. Ah, is that so? I'm a doctor. Oh, no wonder. A forensic pathologist? Close, a veterinarian. The two of them chatted as they climbed to the third floor of the villa. The moment they stepped onto the landing, they both fell silent. A thick, cloying stench of blood mixed with a pungent smell of rotting wood filled the air. On the third floor, there was nothing else. Only a wooden door, stained crimson with blood. On that blood-soaked wooden door, a line of text was written, "Care for the bedridden elderly for 5 days." Caring for the elderly. So this is our mission this time. A glint flashed in Ning Shui's eyes. The others arrived one by one. Seeing the words on the wooden door, they all froze. Is it that simple? Wang Yuning, the woman with the gold earrings, sounded incredulous. Everyone began to murmur. Suddenly, they all stopped. As if sensing something, they turned in unison to look at the wooden door. Creak, creak. Something inside the wooden door seemed to be pushing it open. Soon, the door was pushed open by a pair of pale, bloodless hands. When they regained consciousness, they all found themselves standing behind the blood-red wooden door. Everyone had been scattered throughout a beautiful suburban villa district. The strange thing was, although the place was exquisitely built, it felt gloomy and reeked of death. After passing several villas, Ning Shui confirmed the district was uninhabited. The silence was terrifying. Is it truly empty, or have the residents simply gone to work? Ning Shui studied the villa closely, as if sensing something was off. No. The garden shows signs of recent care. There are goldfish in the pond, and everyday tools left in the yard. This place should have people living in it. But where did they all go? A flicker of doubt rose in Ning Shui's heart as he continued forward. Soon, he spotted the villa the mission required them to enter. It wasn't hard to distinguish, because in the entire district, this was the only villa with someone standing outside. A woman. Dressed neatly and elegantly, a suitcase in hand. She wore a sun hat, pinned with a small red rose, and held the hand of a little girl around 8 or 9 years old. They simply stood there in the blazing sunlight of the courtyard, smiling at the newcomers. The woman's smile was beautiful, the kind that grew more captivating the longer you looked. But somehow, Ning Shui felt a chill crawl up his spine whenever he saw it. That smile, it didn't seem like a welcome to guests. It was more like... Just as Ning Shui was lost in thought, a large hand clapped onto his shoulder. He flinched and turned around. It was Lu Renfeng, the man with the big beard. Hey, little brother, you made it too? Ning Shui nodded. Looks like that villa over there is where we need to go. Lu Renfeng glanced at the distant villa, his expression turning far more serious. He cracked his knuckles as if calculating something, then muttered, "Bad." Seeing his demeanor, Ning Shui's eyes lit up. You read fortunes? Lu Renfeng shook his head. Outside, I do tell fortunes for people, but I just remembered I don't actually know how to read fortunes. I'm just a con man. Ning Shui's breath caught in his throat, speechless. This guy was textbook, a textbook case. He'd lied so much he believed his own lies. And how could he admit something like that so shamelessly? Fine. Ning Shui shook his head helplessly and strode straight toward the woman's villa. Some people had already arrived before him. The villa's mistress didn't speak to them. She only smiled. That indifferent smile left them feeling powerless. When they tried to talk to her, she only replied with one sentence. "Please wait a moment. A few more caretakers haven't arrived yet." About 10 minutes later, all 7 of them had finally gathered. At that moment, as if a certain condition had been triggered, the mistress of the house, who had only been smiling until now, suddenly spoke to everyone. "Is everyone here?" she asked. "I'm truly sorry for inviting you all here to take care of my mother. It's just that my husband is at work, and I want to take my daughter to the beach for her birthday. There really won't be anyone at home. My mother is old. Not only is she bedridden, but her mental faculties have also severely declined. I was worried that just 2 or 3 caretakers might not be attentive enough, so I decided to hire everyone from the company. As for money, you don't need to worry. I'm not short on funds. After I return, if my mother has been well cared for, I will pay each of you a personal bonus." With that, she led everyone into the villa, up to the 2nd floor, and into a large room. The room was not very bright. Inside, there was also a very unpleasant smell. On the large bed by the window lay a gentle-looking old woman, calmly watching Ning Chushui and the others. A faint, eerie smile hung on the old woman's face, a smile that sent a chill down everyone's spine. "This is my mother." After introducing her to everyone, the woman sat down beside the old lady and said affectionately, "Mom, I'm going to take Bao Bao to the beach for her birthday. I've specially found 7 caretakers for you. I'm entrusting your care to them for these 5 days." After speaking, she leaned close to the old lady's ear and whispered something. Then the woman stood up, looked at everyone, and said with a smile, "Although my mother is bedridden and a bit confused, she can still understand simple things. Her overall health is good, she has no other illnesses, and her appetite is fine. Ah, that's right, I haven't shown you the kitchen yet." With that, she led everyone back downstairs to the villa's kitchen. The kitchen was also very large, with all the cooking utensils on the counter fully stocked and everything scrubbed clean. To the left of the kitchen entrance stood 2 large refrigerators. It's summer now, and the rainy season is almost here. Bao Bao is terrified of heavy storms. There might be a typhoon in the next 5 days, and buying groceries and meat will be very inconvenient then. The woman spoke as she opened one of the 2 large refrigerators, revealing it packed full of meat and vegetables. She smiled at everyone. "But you don't need to worry. I've prepared enough food and water for everyone." She paused. "Also, my mother doesn't like vegetables. When you cook for her, make sure to prepare more meat." After she finished speaking, the woman didn't rush to leave with her daughter. Instead, she asked the group, "Does anyone have any other questions?" Ning Chushui spoke up first. "Excuse me, does no one else live in this villa complex?" The woman was taken aback for a moment, then smiled calmly. "That's right. Actually, this villa complex was built quite a long time ago, but it's too remote and desolate. Besides us, no one else lives here. In fact, if it weren't for my mother, we wouldn't be living here either." She paused, then added, "During these 5 days, please consider yourselves the masters of this villa. I've prepared rooms for you on the 2nd floor. You can choose whichever room you like." Her tone shifted, turning deadly serious. "But you must remember, absolutely do not go up to the 3rd floor. Understood?" Everyone answered in unison, "Understood." Seeing their agreement, the hostess smiled again. "Since you all understand, then, I entrust my mother to you." She glanced at her watch. "Ah, the car is about to leave. I need to go with my daughter now, or we'll miss the high-speed train." With that, she hurriedly slipped on her high heels, walked to the door, took her daughter's hand, grabbed her suitcase, and stepped outside. A vague sense of unease crept over Ning Chushui. He walked to the window and watched the woman leave. Just as she was getting into the car, the little girl she was holding turned her head back. Her eyes met Ning Chushui's, who was standing at the window. That look made Ning Chushui freeze. He had excellent eyesight, so he saw it clearly. In the little girl's eyes, there was a ring of fear. She was scared. Scared of what? Scared of going to the sea? Scared of her mother? Or scared of this villa? As Ning Chushui was lost in thought, the burly, bearded Lu Renfeng approached and said, "What are you staring at? She's already gone." He grinned. "Kid, I didn't expect a young guy like you to have a thing for married women. Not bad, not bad. You've got potential." After the villa's hostess left, everyone returned to the main hall. After a brief round of introductions, they began discussing the care plan for the old woman. Among them, Yan Yuping, a short, thin girl with a ponytail, timidly raised her small hand. "Ah, tell me, how did everyone get on this bus?" I was playing on my phone on the high-speed train, got bored, fell asleep, and when I woke up, I was on this bus. Same here. I was working overtime at the office, then suddenly felt so drowsy. One by one, they spoke up. Comparing notes, they realized their experiences were identical. This bizarre coincidence only deepened their already panicked state into sheer terror. "Damn it! We've really run into ghosts," muttered Liu Renfeng, the big-bearded man. Yan Yuping was silent for a moment, then spoke weakly. "What if this is some kind of show? Maybe they invited us to participate in a reality TV program. I mean, I've seen stuff like this on TV before." Before she could finish, Liu Renfeng cut her off with a cold laugh. "Already forgot about that fat guy, huh? Does a TV show kill people and skin them?" Yan Yuping trembled violently but stubbornly insisted. What if it was just a prop? Was the blood a prop too? Who knows? Maybe it was chicken blood, dog blood. Yan Yuping was still trying to deceive herself, but Ning Chu-shuai's sudden words shattered her last line of defense. It wasn't animal blood. Everyone turned to look at Ning Chu-shui. He seemed to have already accepted all of this, appearing eerily calm. "I used to be a veterinarian. I'm very sensitive to smells. The blood of cats, dogs, pigs, sheep, cows, chickens, ducks, fish, pigeons, and human blood all have distinct differences. For example, sheep blood is very gamey, while human blood has a sharp, metallic tang. I can assure you all, the blood on that traffic light pole was definitely human blood. Moreover, it was fresh human blood." After Ning Chu-shui finished speaking, Yan Yuping, trembling with fear, hugged her knees and sobbed. "Please, stop talking. I beg you, don't say any more." Seeing her like this, Ning Chu-shui softened his tone slightly. He couldn't blame the girl for being terrified. For an ordinary person to witness such a scene in real life would leave a psychological scar that might never heal. Only those who regularly dealt with corpses could remain relatively calm. After all, that scene was truly too bloody. "We'd better focus on figuring out how to survive these 5 days first," said Shiz, a man of average appearance, about 1.7 meters tall, with a glint in his eyes. "We have 7 people total. This mission is to take care of a bedridden old woman for 5 days. How does everyone want to split the work?" Everyone exchanged glances. Seeing no one speak up, Ning Chu-shui said, "Well then, the 3 women can handle the cooking and laundry. The 4 of us will take care of the old woman." The moment he finished, Wang Yuning, the beautiful woman with gold earrings, sneered. "Oh, so women have to wash and cook for you stinking men? You really know how to slack off, don't you?" The moment you heard the landlady say the old woman is bedridden and can't move, you all fought to take care of her. Do you take us for fools? Saying you'll take care of the old woman. I bet there's nothing to do at all. Just sit around and laze about, right? Hearing Wang Yuning's words, Liu Renfeng couldn't hold back. He lifted his chin and shot back. "What a stench. A decent-looking girl like you, and your mouth smells like shit?" Wang Yuning's face darkened. "Who are you calling names?" Liu Renfeng was about to say more, but Ning Chu-shui cut him off. "If you don't want to wash and cook, I can switch with you. You take care of the old woman, from 9 in the morning until 10 at night. By 10, it should be dark anyway. We'll go wash up and rest then." Wang Yuning stared at Ning Chu-shui and let out a cold laugh. "Well then, thanks." She said it, but her tone carried no gratitude at all, only mockery. "Right, it's past 5 now. I'm hungry. You don't want to cook, do you? Go on." Ning Chu-shui gave Wang Yuning a long, deep look. Without another word, he turned to the other 2 women. "Do either of you want to switch?" Yamo, the girl who had been silent the whole time, raised her hand. Sorry, I really don't know how to cook." Compared to Wang Yuning's abrasive attitude, Yamo seemed far more sincere. In this day and age, plenty of people had been pampered since childhood and never learned to cook, men and women alike. It wasn't unusual. "Does anyone here know how to cook?" The 3 remaining men fell silent for a moment. Finally, Liu Renfeng couldn't take it anymore. "Ah, fine. I'll cook and wash with you. What a bunch of useless people. Can't even cook or do laundry," Wang Yuning said coldly. "Hey, you crude bastard, keep your mouth clean." Li Renfeng glared, pointing at Wang Yuning. "If I didn't have a rule against hitting women, you'd be dead today." Wang Yuning let out a cold laugh, then clicked her high heels, clack, clack, as she walked upstairs. The kitchen was on the first floor. The old woman was on the second. The villa was huge. Everyone went their separate ways to handle their own tasks. Lu Renfeng followed Ningqiu Shui into the kitchen, still fuming. Yan Yuping, the girl who had been sobbing non-stop, came along too. All right, save the cursing for later. Once inside the kitchen, Ningqiu Shui was genuinely annoyed by Lu Renfeng's grumbling and cut him off. "What? You're just going to take all that?" Lu Renfeng's eyes widened. Ningqiu Shui opened the refrigerator and began pulling out ingredients. "You really think that taking care of that old woman is a good thing?" Hearing this, Lu Renfeng's breath suddenly caught in his throat. "Young friend, what do you mean by that?" Ningqiu Shui slowly turned his head, looking at Lu Renfeng and Yan Yuping standing beside him. "Do you remember what the man in the suit at the Black Villa told us? Only after we survive and return from the Crimson Door will they give us the answer. This means the world behind the Crimson Door holds unimaginable danger." As he finished speaking, Yan Yuping's small frame began to tremble again. Her voice quivered. Danger? What kind?" Ningqiu Shui shook his head. "It's not clear yet, but if the task on the Crimson Door is to take care of the old woman, then more than half of the danger is related to her. In short, caution is paramount." Hearing Ningqiu Shui's warning, Lu Renfeng glanced around, secretly cracking his knuckles. His previously gloomy expression vanished, replaced by a he-he laugh. "Young friend, I think you've got a point. I'll follow your lead." Ningqiu Shui looked at Lu Renfeng with slight surprise, shook his head, and said nothing more. He took the vegetables from the fridge and glanced toward the freezer. As the mistress of the villa had said, it was indeed packed with meat. Cut into pieces by her, each sealed in a different bag. Ningqiu Shui pulled out a bag labeled beef ribs, tossed it into a pot, and simmered it on low heat to thaw. As he closed the fridge, something caught his eye. He pulled out a frozen piece of meat from inside. Inside the bag there were many black, unidentified substances, but the ice was too thick, and the bag was vacuum sealed. He couldn't make out what those black things were. This bag had no meat label either. Perhaps the mistress had forgotten. Ningqiu Shui stared at the meat for a moment, and Lu Renfeng approached again. "Why is this meat so black?" he asked curiously. Ningqiu Shui shook his head and placed the meat back in the fridge. "No idea. Maybe it's been frozen too long, gone bad." The three of them busied themselves in the kitchen. What surprised Ningqiu Shui was that Lu Renfeng, a rough-looking man who seemed like a thug, could actually cook. His movements in washing vegetables, slicing meat, and stir-frying were incredibly smooth. "Time to eat." Lu Renfeng carried the cooked meat and vegetables to the table and shouted upstairs. Then, without waiting to see if anyone upstairs would come down, he grabbed a bowl of steaming rice and wolfed it down. Watching Lu Renfeng eat like a starving ghost, Yan Yuping couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you going to wait for them?" Lu Renfeng grumbled, "Wait for what? Eat!" With that, he continued devouring his food. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps echoed from upstairs. Wang Yuning, descending the stairs, caught sight of Lu Renfeng with his head buried in his bowl and couldn't help but sneer. "Look at the way you eat, like a starving ghost reincarnated." If it had been before, Lu Renfeng would have fought back fiercely. But when it came to eating, he became intensely focused, as if Wang Yuning's sarcasm was nothing more than wind brushing past his ears. Wang Yuning, thinking he was scared, sat down to eat as well. During the meal, everyone was silent. No one knew what to say. They only noticed their vision growing blurrier and blurrier, so much so that they couldn't even make out the beef in their bowls. It wasn't until Ningqiu Shui stood up and turned on the lights that they realized night had already fallen. Damn it! How did it get dark so fast? It's not even 7 o'clock yet. The man named Bei Dao let out a cry, his shocked expression unsettling everyone. "What's your name?" She Guiz, whose face had already soured, furrowed his brow. "Didn't you hear the villa's mistress say before she left that the rainy season was coming? It's normal for it to get dark early. What's there to be surprised about?" Beidao was a little too agitated, but everyone understood why. They exchanged knowing glances, and no one spoke up. The atmosphere in the villa was truly suffocating. Hey, is this how you take care of the old lady? Stuffing your own faces while leaving a bedridden old woman upstairs to starve? Is that any way to act? Or does someone actually think that caring for the old lady means doing nothing at all? After finishing his meal, Liu Renfeng set down his bowl and chopsticks, picked his teeth, and sneered at Wang Yuning, who was sitting across from him. Wang Yuning clenched her fists, her gaze turning much colder. Humph, you think everyone's like you? A useless rice bucket? Disgusting as a maggot. She kicked her high heels in disgust, fetched a bowl of rice, haphazardly scooped up everyone's leftovers, and headed upstairs. As her silhouette disappeared into the pitch-black hallway, everyone's hearts inexplicably tightened. Were all of you on the second floor just now? Ning Chushui set down her utensils and asked the 3 people responsible for caring for the bedridden old lady. Shegui's grunted in affirmation. We've searched the entire second floor. Aside from the bedridden old lady, there's no one else. Our rooms are all across from hers, on the same hallway. Ning Chushui pressed on. Did you notice anything unusual? Shegui shook his head, hesitated for a moment, then replied, In our rooms, there's a very strange smell. I can't quite place it. It's definitely not pleasant. All 7 rooms? Yeah, all of them. At that moment, Yamo, the girl sitting nearby, quietly added, There's one more strange thing. All the rooms the mistress prepared for us have their own private bathrooms. Beidao let out a contemptuous snort. What's so strange about that? The woman's rich. She doesn't want people running all over the place to use the toilet. Ning Chushui raised an eyebrow. No, it really is strange. This villa, clearly only the mistress's family lives here. Even when the master is home, there are only 4 people. Why prepare so many bedrooms and bathrooms? What's so surprising about this? Maybe they're very hospitable? They often invite friends over for parties. Rich people love doing that, don't they? Beidao's voice was tinged with unease. No one answered him. Everyone sank back into that strange silence. Until a piercing scream erupted from the second floor, tearing through the eerie stillness. Ah! The sudden scream shattered the villa's silence. Everyone immediately looked toward the second floor. What happened? I don't know. Let's go check. They rushed upstairs to the source of the scream. It was the bedridden old woman's room. Wang Yuning, the one who had carried the food up earlier, was now slumped on the floor, huddled against the corner wall, clutching her knees and trembling violently. The hot meal was spilled all over the ground. What happened? Ning Chushui asked. Before everyone's eyes, Wang Yuning slowly raised a finger, pointing at the old woman lying on the bed, her voice shaking. She, just now, spoke! Following her finger, everyone looked at the old woman lying motionless on the bed, her gaze vacant, staring out the window. Liu Renfeng laughed. I thought it was something serious? Didn't you hear the mistress say so? Her mother is just paralyzed. She's bedridden, not in a coma. Why can't she talk? And here I thought you were tough. A bedridden old lady scared you that much? Liu Renfeng finally had his chance, his words rattling off like a machine gun. But Wang Yuning seemed genuinely terrified. She trembled, unable to utter a single retort. Ning Chushui glanced at the old woman on the bed, then signaled Liu Renfeng to help clean up the mess on the floor. She herself pulled Wang Yuning to her feet. She made the mess herself, and now I have to clean it up. What kind of nonsense is this? Liu Renfeng muttered under his breath, but he still obeyed quickly. He grabbed a cloth from the bathroom and began wiping the floor. The scene was somewhat discordant. Seeing Liu Renfeng, who usually seemed unyielding, so obedient to Ning Chushui, but no one asked any questions. After the room was cleaned, Ning Chushui walked to the old woman's bedside. She studied the old woman's gentle face carefully, then helped tuck the blanket around her before turning and leaving the room with the others. Back on the first floor, the sky outside had turned pitch black. The bright lights illuminated the hall, yet somehow everyone felt as though they were still trapped in a lightless darkness. The oppressive silence made people uneasy. All right, Wang Yuning, now you can tell us, what did that old woman say to you? Ning Chushui sat across from Wang Yuning on the sofa, pouring herself a cup of hot tea. The moment the recent incident was brought up, Wang Yuning's face, which had just regained some color, turned deathly pale again. She clenched the hem of her clothes with her fingertips. Just now I was feeding her. She took one bite of the beef rib and she spat it out. Li Renfeng glared. Damn it, she threw it up. Is my cooking really that bad? Ning Chushui frowned. Li Renfeng, let her finish first. Li Renfeng clicked his tongue, muttered a few words, and fell silent. Wang Yuning's eyes were filled with fear, her expression conflicted, as if she didn't want to recall what had just happened. I thought it was too hot, so I tasted it myself, but the food wasn't hot, so I fed her a second bite, but she still spat it out. And this time, after she spat it out, she turned her head and stared at me, saying, she stammered for a long time. Xie Gui's brows were furrowed so tightly they could crush a mosquito, and he urged, What did she say? Just say it. Pressured by Xie Gui's, Wang Yuning finally gritted her teeth and said, her voice was very soft, I couldn't hear clearly, but it seemed like she said, The meat is bland. Yes, she definitely said the meat was bland. The moment she finished speaking, a terrifying flash of lightning streaked across the window, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. Everyone jumped at the sound. Damn, that thunder. Ning Chushui looked at the pitch-black sky outside, then suddenly walked to the window and opened it. A cold wind, carrying raindrops, brushed against his face. It's raining. Heavy rain, strong wind. He closed the window, his expression turning much more serious. These things are starting to come true. This letter, it really wasn't a joke? Unlike the others, before getting on the bus, Ning Chushui had received a mysterious letter. He had kept this hidden from everyone. While everyone was buzzing with discussion about the bland meat, Ning Chushui suddenly closed the window. He sealed it tightly, not letting a single draft in. All right, if she won't eat, then she won't. It's late, let's rest early. We'll get up early tomorrow morning and cook some meat porridge for the old lady. Has everyone chosen their rooms? The crowd, which had been in the middle of a heated discussion, suddenly fell silent. Are we really going to sleep in separate rooms? At this moment, Yamo, the quiet girl, spoke up, her face full of fear, as if she had been frightened by what had just happened. Shigi said, We've looked at the rooms. They're very spacious, with double beds, and they're very clean. 2 people to a room is just right. Yan Yuping, whose eyes were still a little swollen, heard that they had to share a room and said worriedly, But there are 3 of us girls. Shigui sighed. The rooms aren't small, and you 3 are petite. You can squeeze in and sleep. The 3 girls looked at each other, all falling silent. No one liked sharing a bed with strangers. But deep down, they all knew this villa wasn't safe. Everyone felt as if something in the darkness was staring at them. After the lights were turned off, they all went upstairs together. After a brief discussion, Ning Chushui and Liu Renfeng were the first to enter a room. The 3 girls stayed in the last room on the right side of the second-floor hallway, the farthest from the old lady they were supposed to take care of. The remaining 2 men chose the room next to Ning Chushui's. For some reason, Ning Chushui seemed to possess a strange magnetism. When people were near him, they felt safer. The last person to head to their room was Wang Yuning. While she was still lost in thought over the day's events, everyone else had already entered their rooms one by one. In an instant, she was left alone in the hallway. The hallway light switch was at the top of the stairs. There was only one switch, but the room they had chosen was at the far end of the hall, a distance of at least 20 meters. If she wanted to turn off the light, it meant she would have to fumble through 20 meters of pitch-black darkness. Her gaze fell upon the wide open window at the end of the corridor. The trees outside seemed to grow like demons, twisted and ferocious. With the bone-piercing chill of the wind, they looked as if they might crawl inside at any moment and devour Wang Yuning whole. She couldn't help but tremble. She didn't dare turn off the light. Hurriedly, she stepped into the last room and locked the door behind her. Bang! Inside the room, Ning Chushui took off his shirt, revealing a muscular, powerful physique. Liu Renfeng, who was brushing his teeth, stared over in shock. He never expected Ning Chushui to be such a muscular hunk. Ning Xiaojie, I never would have guessed. You really kept this hidden. With a body like this, six-pack abs like that, if you went to a bar, the rich ladies would definitely be fighting over you. Li Renfeng chuckled, winking at Ning Chu Shui. Ning Chu Shui rolled his eyes. Then why do you keep following me? Hearing this, Li Renfeng spat out the toothpaste foam from his mouth. His playful expression faded, replaced by a serious one. Xiao Jie, you really are cautious, but I can't tell you yet. Wait until we make it back alive from the Crimson Door, then I'll tell you. Hearing Li Renfeng's answer, Ning Chu Shui was initially a little surprised, then he smiled, still being so mysterious. Li Renfeng shook his head, changing the subject. By the way, Xiao Ge, do you feel like that old woman is a problem? Ning Chu Shui was silent for a moment. It's not just that old woman. This entire family, even this entire villa district, is a problem. Li Renfeng was stunned. What's wrong with the villa district? Ning Chu Shui said, the mistress of the villa said that only her family lives in this area. But in reality, I've passed by many villas. They all have signs of people living inside, and signs from the past month or two. I've seen 8 houses like that, not counting the ones I haven't seen yet. This proves that this area, not long ago, still had people living here. Hearing Ning Chu Shui's words, a chill ran down Li Renfeng's spine. If Ning Chu Shui's assessment was correct, then where had those people gone? Ning Chu Shui walked to the window, his expression serious, hands in his pockets. He continued, besides, a person living alone usually wouldn't buy a villa with such a large garden, so the people who moved here basically all had families or friends. Even if they went to work, there couldn't be no one in the house. But in reality, this villa district seems to only have us left. He pointed a finger. Following the direction of his finger, Li Renfeng froze. Outside the window, more than a dozen houses were all pitch black. Not a single light was on. How is this possible? His face turned extremely grim. Ning Chu Shui spoke slowly, his voice a low murmur. Something must have happened here. Something truly terrifying. He checked the window with meticulous care. He confirmed it was locked tight, not a single draft seeping through. Then he drew the curtains and returned to his bed. There was no wind. As the two men lay on their beds, they both caught a strange scent in the air. What is that smell? Li Renfeng asked. The odor was not strong, but it lingered, refusing to dissipate. It was like something rotting. They recalled what Shi Gui's had said earlier. After a search, they finally pinpointed the source of the smell. The ceiling above their heads. The wooden ceiling there was damp. A liquid seemed to be seeping through. This liquid was a murky brown yellow, and its stench was foul. Damn it! Li Renfeng felt a wave of nausea and quickly pulled his bed away. What is that? Ning Chu Shui stood beneath it, squinting at the damp stain on the ceiling. After a long moment, he spoke. Big Beard, do you trust me? Li Renfeng didn't understand Ning Chu Shui's meaning, but he nodded anyway. I do. Ning Chu Shui said slowly, tonight, don't sleep. Don't turn on the light. No matter what you hear, don't pay it any mind. Li Renfeng's body went rigid. Xiao Ge, you mean something's gonna happen tonight? Ning Chu Shui was silent for a long time. Finally, he gave an almost imperceptible nod. He turned off the light. The room was instantly plunged into a terrifying, silent darkness. Li Renfeng lay on his bed, his heart a knot of anxiety. Though he tried to stay awake, as time passed, exhaustion finally seeped through his body. He didn't know how long it had been when he was jolted awake by a strange sound. The sound came from outside the door. It was a kind of noise like 2 sharp metal objects scraping against each other. Scrape. Hearing this spine-chilling sound, Li Renfeng's mind immediately conjured an image of knives and forks. He cooked often. He was far too familiar with the sound of kitchen utensils and cutlery. Li Renfeng suddenly sat up. He wanted to turn on the light, but then he remembered Ning Chu Shui's warning. His hand reached out, then fell back down. Ning Xiao Ge, where are you? Li Renfeng whispered. A soft shh came from beside him. Don't speak. Ning Chu Shui's voice was also very low, carrying a barely perceptible tremor. Clearly, he was just as tense. Their door wasn't completely sealed. There was a gap. The hallway light outside seeped in through the crack under the door. As the horrifying sound scraped past their door, a strange shadow flickered across the gap. The The terrifying scraping sound made Liu Renfeng's heart feel like it would leap out of his chest. The thing outside had stopped right in front of their door. Liu Renfeng clenched his fists, holding his breath. What was that thing outside the door? If it stepped inside, what would happen? In that moment, his mind went blank, as if he had lost the ability to think. It felt like several minutes had passed, or perhaps only an instant, when the terrifying shadow outside finally moved again, creeping deeper into the hallway. The grating, scraping sound echoed once more. Scrape, scrape. This sensation, it was like an executioner searching for a condemned prisoner. It moved a ways, paused before the second door, then continued to the door at the end of the hallway, stopping there as well, before vanishing completely. At this moment, Ningqiu Shui suddenly sat up from the bed, stepping lightly to the door and pressing his ear against the crack beneath it. He listened for a long time. There was no sound outside anymore. It seemed the shadow had disappeared. After silently listening for over 10 minutes, he confirmed the outside was utterly quiet, then returned to the bed. "Xiaoge, what was that thing outside?" Liu Renfeng lowered his voice to ask. Ningqiu Shui shook his head. "I don't know, but I'm certain it wasn't human. It made no sound when it walked." Hearing this, cold sweat immediately broke out on Liu Renfeng's forehead. Impossible. Inside this villa, could there really be something unclean? In the room, a bone-piercing silence reigned. Combined with the foul stench lingering in the air, both men felt a chill from head to toe. Drip! A drop of liquid fell beside them, landing on the floor. This sound was not loud in itself, but in the room's extreme stillness, it was amplified infinitely. Ningqiu Shui even sensed that, as that unknown droplet fell, Liu Renfeng beside him suddenly shuddered. Xiaoge. Liu Renfeng's voice trembled as he slowly raised his hand, as if reaching for something. Ningqiu Shui took a deep breath and said, "Don't turn on the light, unless you want to die." Liu Renfeng was startled. "Why?" Ningqiu Shui shook his head. "I can't explain yet. Just know this, in places with drafts, it's best not to turn on the light. If you do, stay far away." Hearing this, Liu Renfeng suddenly remembered. Earlier, every time Ningqiu Shui passed a window, he had closed it tightly. For some reason, a chill ran from his head to his feet. Then, Liu Renfeng's gaze fell on the crack of the door, and he couldn't help cursing inwardly. Some bastard had gone into the last room and left the hallway light on. After this incident, the two couldn't sleep anymore, nor did they care about the awkwardness of sharing a bed. They huddled together on one mattress, as if each other's warmth could offer some comfort. Drowsily, they drifted for an unknown time until the window gradually brightened and the rain began to lighten. Liu Renfeng checked his watch. It was 8 a.m. A faint light seeped in from outside the window. Though it was still dim, at least they could see clearly. His gaze fell on the puddle of water on the floor to his left. The sound of dripping water from last night was coming from here. Liu Renfeng crouched under the bed, staring at the stain on the floor. He leaned in and sniffed. Ugh! The thick, putrid stench nearly made him vomit. Ningqiu Shui, standing beside him, noticed his strange behavior. He crouched down to look as well. He took a tentative sniff, and his expression shifted slightly. "This is..." Liu Renfeng asked urgently. "What is it?" Ningqiu Shui paused for a moment, then spoke slowly. "Corpse fluid, or to put it another way, corpse oil. It usually happens when an animal decomposes to a high degree. The fat turns into oil and seeps out." Liu Renfeng couldn't take it anymore. He quickly cut Ningqiu Shui off. Stop, Xiaoge, don't say any more. I understand." His face was deathly pale. He looked up at the stain. The damp patch from the corpse oil on the wooden ceiling had spread from the size of a fist to the size of a human head. God only knew what was above them. Just as Liu Renfeng was lost in thought, two terrified screams from women suddenly rang out from outside the door. "Ah!" The two exchanged a glance. Something had happened. "Let's go check it out." Ningqiu Shui opened the door first, leading Liu Renfeng out of the room. The moment he stepped out, Ningqiu Shui frowned. The smell of blood was overwhelmingly thick. On the hallway floor, a pool of fresh blood stretched from the door at the far end, all the way to the stairs. The terrified screams had come from the window at the end of the hallway. A crowd was gathered there. Ningqiu Shui and Liu Renfeng walked over, pushing through the people. They saw Yamo and Yan Yuping sitting slumped on the floor in front of the door, their bodies trembling, their faces ashen. Beside them, besides the large pool of blood, there was also vomit. "What happened?" Ning Qishui asked, his tone serious. The two girls looked at Ning Qishui, their eyes filled with sheer terror, as if they had just experienced something unspeakably horrifying. Their lips trembled, unable to form words. They only pointed towards their room, tears streaming down their faces. Ning Qishui looked towards their room. He was about to open the door when Shegui, standing nearby, stopped him. His expression was grim. "Inside, it's gruesome." Ning Qishui glanced at him, pushed his hand away, and closed the window beside him first. Then he opened the door. When everyone outside saw what was inside, their breath caught in their throats. They saw, on the bed closest to the door, a blood-soaked corpse. This corpse was Wang Yuning, the one with the gold earrings. She was dead. Ning Qishui endured the thick, cloying smell of blood and stepped into the room. As he moved deeper, he finally got a clear view of the bloodied corpse. The sight almost made him vomit. The corpse lay on the bed. Its head was still intact, with a fair, slender neck, but from the neck down, it had been brutally torn open. The red muscles were in disarray, the wounds crisscrossing in a chaotic mess. The internal organs were gone. Many of the muscles had been smashed, missing, and scattered. What was even more horrifying was Wang Yuning's expression. Her eyes were closed. There was no sign of pain on her face. Instead, a sinister smile lingered on her lips. "Damn it." Liu Renfeng followed in, his eyes wide with terror, his legs trembling so violently that if he didn't hold back, he might have pissed himself. This. At that moment, he finally understood why the two girls outside had become like that. Forget women, even he, right now, was probably no better off than them. Ning Qishui forced down the churning unease in his chest and stepped closer to the corpse. The others lingered outside, unwilling to enter the room. Inside, it was truly too horrifying. After examining the body for a while, Ning Qishui suddenly remembered something. His expression shifted abruptly and he spun around, sprinting out the door. "Xiao Ge, what's wrong?" Seeing Ning Qishui run, Liu Renfeng dared not stay in the room. The others, too, couldn't bear to remain on the second floor. They followed Ning Qishui down to the first floor, into the kitchen. Ning Qishui stared at the set of knives and forks hanging on the wall for a long moment, then muttered, "One set is missing." Bei Dao, already frightened out of his wits, asked urgently, "Missing one set of what?" Ning Qishui slowly uttered 3 words, "Steak knives and forks." Hearing this, the first to jolt was Liu Renfeng. Last night, when he heard the metallic scraping sound outside the hallway, he had felt it was the noise of knives and forks. Could it be? Liu Renfeng seemed to realize something terrifying, and his entire body trembled. What does a missing set of knives and forks have to do with that corpse? Bei Dao was still puzzled. Most of the others hadn't grasped what was happening yet. Ning Qishui slowly turned his head, fixing his gaze on them. Every word he spoke sent a chill down their spines. The wounds on Wang Yuning's body were caused by knives and forks. As soon as he finished, the faces of the group turned deathly pale. "Ning Qishui, you're joking, right? Are you sure?" Ning Qishui didn't answer Bei Dao. Instead, he asked the two girls, "Last night, did either of you hear Wang Yuning's cries for help?" Both girls shook their heads, their eyes filled with fear. "No, last night we were too sleepy. We fell asleep quickly." At that moment, Sheguize suddenly gritted his teeth and spoke with a strange expression. "I heard something last night." "Heard what?" "That metallic scraping sound. Thinking back now, it really sounded like knives and forks." Ning Qishui and Liu Renfeng exchanged a glance. Ning Qishui said to him, "Go cook some porridge. Add plenty of meat. I'll go check on the old lady upstairs." Liu Renfeng nodded. "Xiao Ge, be careful. What about us? Follow me." Yan Yuping and Liu Renfeng stayed in the kitchen to cook the porridge, while Ning Qishui led the others hurriedly upstairs to the room of the bedridden old woman. The moment they stepped into the room, everyone froze, because on the table beside the bedridden old woman, there was a gleaming set of knives and forks. It was the very set that had disappeared from the kitchen. As if sensing their presence, the old woman lying in bed slowly turned her head and gave them a kind, gentle smile. "Ah! Yamo let out a terrified scream, stumbling as she fled downstairs. Bei Dao and Shi Gui's beside him were not much better off. Their expressions were extremely grim. If not for Ning Chushui standing there as steady as a rock, they would have fled after Yamo. After experiencing such a horrifying ordeal, Ning Chushui faced this old woman, not only without fear, but even took the initiative to move closer. "Damn it, Ning Chushui, have you lost your mind?" Shi Gui's face twisted in disgust. Everyone could see that the old woman lying on the bed was the one who killed Wang Yuning. Moreover, she might not even be human. Ning Chushui ignored Shi Gui's, walking directly to the old woman's bedside, picking up the knife and fork to examine them closely. Very clean. He brought them to his nose and sniffed. No unusual smell. Ning Chushui furrowed his brow. He stared thoughtfully at the old woman on the bed. Ning Chushui leaned down, whispering into the old woman's ear. "Grandma, is it just you alone in this room usually?" The old woman's lips quivered. Meat. Meat. No." She seemed mentally disturbed, repeating the same words over and over. Ning Chushui narrowed his eyes. "Meat no? Meat no what? Meat not cooked?" He listened for a long time but still couldn't hear the old woman utter a third word. At that moment, Liu Renfeng brought in a bowl of congee. "I've cooled it with cold water. Not hot. You can drink it directly." He had to admit, this bowl of congee smelled truly delicious. The aroma of beef and green onions as garnish. Ning Chushui personally brought it to the old woman's lips, scooping up a spoonful of meat congee and bringing it to her mouth. Everyone standing nearby watched nervously, their breaths slowing, as if afraid the old woman would suddenly open her mouth and devour Ning Chushui whole. However, that terrifying scene did not occur. The old woman calmly ate the congee, but when she bit into something, she suddenly frowned, spitting it out with disgust. It was a piece of beef. Immediately after, the old woman began spitting continuously until she had ejected all the congee from her mouth before stopping. "Meat, meat no." She started repeating those two words again. Ning Chushui pressed his ear close to the old woman's mouth. This action, in everyone's eyes, was truly dangerous, because if this old woman really was the one who killed Wang Yuning last night, then at this moment, Ning Chushui's actions were no different from seeking death. Fortunately, the old woman did not bite Ning Chushui's ear. It was this reckless action that allowed Ning Chushui to obtain a crucial piece of information. Meat, no, cooked. The third word was not flavor, but cooked. But why would it be meat not cooked? Ning Chushui personally ate a piece of the beef congee. Cooked, definitely cooked. Standing in contemplation for a long time, Ning Chushui suddenly thought of something, saying to Liu Renfeng, "Big Beard, hurry up. Cook a bowl of congee without meat." Liu Renfeng, standing outside, found this a bit strange, but still followed Ning Chushui's instructions. Very quickly, he brought in a bowl of plain congee. This time, the old woman ate. She did not spit it out. Everyone watched this scene, momentarily stunned. What was happening? She vomited when eating beef congee, but didn't vomit when eating plain congee. After helping the old woman finish the porridge in the bowl, Ning Chushui handed the bowl to Liu Renfeng, then left the room. "Xiaoge, what's going on?" Liu Renfeng asked in a low, curious voice. Ning Chushui shook his head. "It's complicated. I'll explain later." "Ah, where's Yamo?" At his question, everyone realized that Yamo, who had just been scared and run downstairs, had vanished without a trace. "Yamo!" Liu Renfeng shouted loudly, but the villa offered no reply, only a terrifying silence. A foreboding feeling filled everyone's hearts. They went downstairs, searching everywhere for Yamo. Finally, Ning Chushui stood before the wide-open front gate, staring out at the wind and rain, and said to the others, "No need to search anymore." "She's run away." "What? Run away?" Liu Renfeng approached, glanced at the blinding rain outside, and couldn't help but shiver. Somehow, upon hearing this news, everyone immediately thought of that fat man who had jumped out of the bus window, only to be skinned alive by something. The mission required them to care for the bedridden old woman in the villa for 5 days. During this time, if they left the villa, what would happen? Ning Chushui was about to return to the first-floor hall when his gaze fell upon the shoe cabinet by the door. He bent down and searched inside. "Xiaoge, what are you looking for?" Liu Renfeng hurried over. Ning Chushui narrowed his eyes. No men's shoes. "Huh?" Ningxi's mind raced. Even he didn't realize why his thoughts were so sharp. The female owner of the villa kept repeating that her husband was at work. But in this house, there are no men's shoes at all. Li Renfeng's body stiffened. You mean? A sharp glint flashed in Ning Qushui's eyes. Two possibilities. First, her husband, for some reason, has moved out of here. Second, she doesn't have a husband at all. Li Renfeng raised an eyebrow. She doesn't have a husband. That can't be, but if so, her daughter. Before he could finish, Ning Qushui looked up at him directly and slowly asked a question made Li Renfeng break out in a cold sweat. What makes you think that little girl is her daughter? Just because she was holding her hand. Meeting Ning Qushui's gaze for a few seconds, cold sweat beaded on Li Renfeng's forehead. He swallowed, realizing the gravity of the situation. That was right. There was no evidence at all to prove that the little girl the woman was holding was her daughter. Let's go back first. Ning Qushui pondered for a moment. He looked at the blinding rain outside the door and felt an inexplicable bone-piercing chill, as if something terrifying was staring at him from within the rain. He immediately closed the door, checked it thoroughly, and then returned to the hall with Li Renfeng. Everyone's expressions were grim. The villa was very large. Originally there were 7 of them, which gave it some life. Now, Wang Yuning had died horribly, Yamo had run into the rain, and only 5 people remained in the room. Ning Qiushui, just now, what did that old woman say? She Gui's face was ashen. He had been the calmest one among them all along, but that was only because he used to be a mortician, having seen countless gruesome corpses, so his tolerance was better than the average person. Seeing everyone's eyes turn to him, Ning Qushui spoke bluntly. She said, "The meat isn't familiar." Everyone was stunned. Meat isn't familiar? She's talking out of her ass! Li Renfeng immediately flared up, glaring and cursing. As if I don't know whether meat is familiar or not. Seeing Li Renfeng's fury, everyone's expressions eased a little. This big bearded man was fierce, with strong yang energy, just the thing to dispel the yin aura in this silent, eerie villa. Unlike the fear on everyone else's faces, Ning Qushui was abnormally calm, as if he had experienced scenes like this countless times before. So, those 3 words aren't "the meat isn't familiar." The murmuring crowd fell silent again. What do you mean? Shigui's frowned. Ning Qushui raised an eyebrow. The old woman upstairs, she's very old, in poor health, and her mind isn't stable either. She doesn't speak clearly. And we were already led by Wang Yuning, who just died. Subconsciously, we assumed the first 2 words the old woman said were, "the meat isn't." But actually, I don't think the old woman upstairs meant to say those 3 words at all. Bei Dao snorted contemptuously. Who cares what that murdering hag said? Didn't you see the knife and fork placed on the table beside her this morning? It's obvious she killed Wang Yuning last night. He paused, glanced fearfully up at the 2nd floor, confirmed no one was there, then lowered his voice. Who knows, maybe the missing pieces of flesh from Wang Yuning's body were all eaten by her. His voice was low and grim. After he finished speaking, Yan Yuping was so scared she hugged Lu Renfeng tightly beside her. Lu Renfeng, startled by Yan Yuping's sudden movement, cursed. Bei Dao, are you trying to tell a ghost story here? Look, you've scared the girl. Bei Dao's expression was also terrible. He cracked his knuckles, speaking in a panicked tone. I don't want to die. Even less do I want to die like Wang Yuning. Did you all see? She was clearly eaten by someone. It's terrifying, truly terrifying. Hearing Bei Dao's words, Shigui's felt irritated and couldn't help but say, Enough! Stop talking. Who wants to die, huh? Who wants to die? Aren't we all trying to figure things out right now? Li Renfeng shifted his attention back to Ning Qushui, who was deep in thought. It had to be said, his calm and composed demeanor brought a sense of reassurance to everyone, quietly becoming their pillar of spiritual support. Little brother, have you figured something out? Ning Qushui looked up, glancing at him. I have a theory. Tonight, I need a brave person to verify it with me. Hearing that this task had to be done at night, and recalling the events of the previous night, everyone fell silent immediately. After a moment, Lu Renfeng gritted his teeth and asked, Xiao Jie, why do we have to go at night? Can't we do it during the day? Ning Qushui shook his head. No, Liu Renfeng was startled. He initially wanted to stay quiet, but when he met Ning Chushui's calm gaze, he blurted out, "All right, I'll go with you." The moment the words left his mouth, Liu Renfeng wanted to slap himself. Damn it, why couldn't he control his own mouth? Good. Tonight, you'll follow me. Just then, a blood-curdling scream suddenly erupted from the second floor. No, don't. Please, I know. Ah! Everyone's skin crawled at that horrific scream. They exchanged glances, seeing the fear reflected in each other's eyes. This voice was all too familiar. It was Yamo, the one who had just fled the villa. That agonizing scream lasted only a brief moment before falling completely silent. Ning Chushui was the first to rush upstairs, followed by Liu Renfeng and the others. But when they stepped onto the second floor, they suddenly stopped dead in their tracks. Shock and disbelief spread across everyone's faces. No, this can't be. Bei Dao's voice trembled, his legs shaking uncontrollably. Before them, the bloodstains that had been splattered across the floor this morning had vanished without a trace. Not even a single drop of blood remained, as if everything that happened this morning had been nothing but an illusion. Everyone, look! At that moment, Yan Yuping cried out in panic, pointing at the room at the end of the hallway. Everyone followed her gaze and discovered a fresh pool of blood gushing from beneath the door, spreading out into the hallway. A gust of wind blew through the wide-open window at the end of the corridor, carrying a nauseating stench of blood. Damn it! Liu Renfeng barely managed to choke out those two words, his entire body covered in goosebumps. The others' expressions were no better. Ning Chushui stared intently at that window, frowning. He remembered clearly. When he had come upstairs this morning to inspect Wang Yuning's corpse, he had closed the window and locked it securely. No matter how strong the wind outside, it couldn't have forced that window open. Moreover, that window lock could only be opened from the inside. After coming downstairs, Ning Chushui had been watching the old woman's door almost constantly. She had never left her room, so she couldn't have opened the window. At that time, they had all been on the first floor searching for Yamo, so none of them could have gone to open it either. If that was the case, who had opened that window? Could it be the dead Wang Yuning? The moment this thought entered his mind, even Ning Chushui felt a chill run down his spine. But unlike the others, who cowered in fear, he stepped forward, despite the dread, and walked toward that door still oozing blood. Watching Ning Chushui's actions, the people behind him stood with their mouths agape at a loss for words. Damn it, this Ning Chushui, how could he be so bold? He wasn't afraid of what might be behind that door, was he? Ning Chushui, have you lost your mind? Bei Dao shouted, but Ning Chushui didn't even acknowledge him. He simply walked straight toward the window at the end of the hallway. Suddenly, someone from the group lunged forward. It was Liu Renfeng. He chased after Ning Chushui. Xiao Jie, wait for me. Seeing Liu Renfeng follow Ning Chushui, the remaining three finally managed to suppress the fear in their hearts. They gritted their teeth and followed. At the end of the hallway, Ning Chushui immediately pulled the window shut and locked it again. Having done that, under everyone's anxious gaze, he slowly opened the door to the last room. The moment the door swung open, Yan Yuping immediately vomited. Ah! The others stumbled back half a step in terror. Inside the room, Yamo's blood-soaked corpse hung suspended in midair. Her stomach had been ripped open, her organs were gone, leaving only a bloody spine. Yamo's neck seemed to have been snapped by an external force, twisted at a 90-degree angle. A grotesque smile stretched across her face as she stared at everyone. No one dared to look her in the eye. No one, except Ning Chushui. He walked beneath Yamo's corpse, examining it closely. His gaze grew sharper and sharper. The method of death is almost identical to Wang Yuning's. Same perpetrator. Is it the old woman on the second floor? Ning Chushui turned his head, looking toward the old woman's room. He recalled the 3 words she had spoken earlier. And suddenly, his pupils constricted. Could it be? Wait, does everyone realize Wang Yuning's corpse has disappeared? Bei Dao suddenly pointed at the bed behind Yamo's corpse, shouting in panic. Everyone looked. Indeed, the corpse of Wang Yuning, which had been lying on the bed, was gone. The bloodstains on the bed were also gone. Then, where had her body gone? Bang! Ning Chushui suddenly slammed the door shut. Staring at the pool of blood on the floor, he said slowly, "Let's go downstairs first." Shigui's beside him widened his eyes. "Go downstairs? What about Yamo's corpse in there?" Ning Chushui shook his head, his voice calm. "Don't worry about it. It will clean up." Hearing this, everyone's skin crawled. As they followed Ning Chushui downstairs, they asked, "Ning Xiaoge, who is it?" Ning Chushui didn't turn back. "The killer. Is it the old woman on the second floor?" Ning Chushui didn't answer. Back in the villa's main hall, an eerie silence fell over everyone. Fear had drowned them like a tidal wave, and so it went until nightfall. Liu Renfeng finally couldn't bear the suffocating atmosphere any longer. He stood up and said, "I'll go cook." Ning Chushui also stood up. "I'll come too. During this time, no matter what you do, it's best not to act alone." Having said that, he ignored the others and walked straight into the kitchen with Liu Renfeng. As for Yan Yuping, after learning that the ghost in the villa used kitchen knives and forks to kill, no matter what, he refused to set foot in the kitchen, not even a single step. In the kitchen, seeing that no one else had entered, Liu Renfeng lowered his voice and asked, "Xiaoge, tonight, do you plan to go up to the third floor?" Ning Chushui was taking meat out of the fridge. He paused slightly, then smiled without turning around. "Seems like you're not as dumb as you look. This old rogue is clever." Flattered by Ning Chushui's praise, Liu Renfeng scratched his head sheepishly. "Xiaoge, there's something I don't quite understand. Why don't we go up to the third floor during the day? Why must we wait until nightfall? That place, it must be dangerous, right?" Whether it was the villa's mistress's warning before she left, or the gut feeling everyone shared, they all knew. The third floor was extremely dangerous. Moreover, the large iron door leading to the third floor was locked with a heavy padlock. They had no key. Ning Chushui, still rummaging through the fridge, replied, "It is indeed dangerous, especially during the day." Liu Renfeng was startled. At Ning Chushui's hint, he suddenly understood. "Xiaoge, you mean the murderous ghost isn't the old woman on the second floor, but the one on the third floor? During the day, it rests on the third floor. At night, it comes out to hunt." Ning Chushui gave a slight nod. "That's right. That old woman is probably just an ordinary person, bait, used by that ghost to lure people into the villa. And I have a very grim theory, but I'll have to wait until tonight to confirm it." As Ning Chushui spoke, he suddenly noticed something. After a bit of searching, he pulled out several pieces of meat from the fridge. These cuts were vacuum sealed, with no labels. Inside, there were dark, indistinct shapes, but because of the thick layer of frost, they couldn't make out what they were. So Ning Chushui handed the meat to Liu Renfeng beside him. "Cut it open and take a look." Liu Renfeng took a knife and slit the vacuum-sealed bag, but suddenly stopped. Damn it! He stared at the meat inside the plastic wrap, unable to hold back a curse. This piece of meat in the vacuum bag was covered in thick hair. Judging by the placement of the hair, it seemed to be from a leg, and a human one at that. Is this thing in the bag human meat? Liu Renfeng was so horrified he threw the meat in his hand to the ground. The frozen slab hit the floor with a sharp, clattering sound. He suddenly remembered the meat they had eaten earlier and couldn't help but gag. Liu Renfeng knew full well that what he had eaten before was beef, but still, the nausea was overwhelming. Ning Chushui picked up the meat from the floor, examined it carefully, and finally placed it back into the bag. "I think I know why the old woman on the second floor doesn't eat meat." Liu Renfeng, struggling to suppress his nausea, his face pale, asked, "Why?" Ning Chushui spoke slowly. "Because before us, someone once fed that old woman these very cuts of meat, giving her a severe psychological trauma toward meat." "And don't you find it strange?" Liu Renfeng frowned. "Strange about what?" Ning Chushui finished wrapping the meat and shoved it back into the fridge. That old woman was clearly paralyzed, but the window in her room was nailed shut with so many steel bars, as if they were afraid she might escape. Liu Renfeng thought it over carefully. That was exactly the case. But then, a chill ran down his spine, as if he had stumbled upon something terrifying. "You mean the old woman's paralysis?" Ning Chushui's gaze sharpened as he nodded. "Very likely. However, that's not the scary part. The truly terrifying thing is still ahead." He finished speaking, then took another piece of lamb from the fridge and tossed it to Liu Renfeng. there's something even scarier. Li Renfeng caught the lamb, his face turning pale. Ning Qiushui frowned. Haven't you noticed this family doesn't have a single photograph? Li Renfeng paused mid-cut. That was true. Earlier, the little girl the villa's mistress had been holding by the hand was at least 8 or 9 years old. After all these years, even if the master and mistress had divorced, there should have been at least a few photos of the woman and her daughter somewhere in the house. But in reality, there were no pictures of the woman, the little girl, or the old woman on the second floor anywhere on the first or second floors. Why was that? Moreover, if I'm not mistaken, those women's shoes in the shoe cabinet by the door. Ning Qiushui began, then suddenly stopped, shaking his head. Never mind. Let's cook first. With so many questions, tonight should bring answers. Seeing that Ning Qiushui didn't want to say more, Li Renfeng didn't press further, but he stole another glance at Ning Qiushui. This man was too strange. Whether it was earlier, seeing the fat man's human skin, or later, encountering a series of bizarre events in the world behind the crimson door, he never seemed overly panicked. In fact, he was eerily calm. Such terrifying mental fortitude, Li Renfeng had never seen anything like it in over 30 years. Was he really just a veterinarian from the outside world? Li Renfeng began to grow curious about Ning Qiushui. Dinner. Everyone sat at the table in silence. Li Renfeng, why aren't you eating any vegetables? Shi Gui's noticed that the chef Li Renfeng had only ladled some plain congee for himself and hadn't touched any vegetables at all. The lamb tonight smelled delicious, but Li Renfeng hadn't touched a single bite. He had even placed the lamb at the farthest corner from himself. Huh? Vegetables? Oh, right, vegetables. I have a bit of a stomachache. Li Renfeng stammered, his face ashen. He and Ning Qiushui hadn't told anyone about the human meat in the fridge. After all, 2 of their group were already dead. Everyone was on edge, like birds startled by the mere twang of a bowstring, and revealing this information would only fuel their fear. Besides, even if everyone knew, it wouldn't help them survive. The mission required them to care for the elderly in the villa for 5 days, so they had to stay for the full 5 days. After dinner, they faced a new problem: how to arrange things for Yan Yuping. With the 2 girls dead, Yan Yuping was the only woman left in the group. Were they going to let her sleep alone in a room? I don't want to sleep alone. Yan Yuping, sensing the strange atmosphere, was so anxious she was about to cry. Was this a joke? Leaving her to sleep alone in a place this terrifying? It might as well be killing her. Compared to life and death, the issue of propriety between men and women meant nothing to Yan Yuping. Then, tonight you'll sleep with us. My brother and I will take the sofa, and you take the bed, Beidao said. Shi Gui's had no objections either. After all, the group was getting smaller by the day. The more people died, the more dangerous it became for those who remained. Yan Yuping nodded, looking at the 2 men with grateful eyes. This scene caught Ning Qiushui's attention, and he shook his head slightly. Ning Qiushui knew, if the ghost lurking in the villa wanted to kill someone, gathering 100 people together would be useless. Seeing that everyone's expressions had improved a bit, he finally spoke. It's late. Everyone get some rest early. Oh, and remember to check the doors and windows. Make sure they're locked tight. After tonight, there are only 3 days left until we can leave. Everyone nodded. The lights on the first-floor living room were turned off. Ning Qiushui followed them up to the second floor, watched everyone enter their rooms, and then turned off the hallway lights. This light switch was at the head of the stairs. Normally, switches in places like this were 2-way or even multi-way. Turn on in one spot, turn off in another, making them more convenient to use. But for some reason, the second-floor hallway lights in the villa were designed as single-way switches. When the hallway lights went out, the entire villa was plunged into darkness. A chill ran down Ning Qiushui's spine. He was about to head to his room when he suddenly heard a faint noise coming from not far behind him. The sound wasn't loud, but in the dead silence of the darkness, it was unmistakably clear. It was the sound of the iron door leading to the 3rd floor being unlocked. Ning Qiushui's body went rigid. Upstairs, something seemed to be coming down, and it was, right behind him. In that instant, Ning Qiushui felt as though every cell in his body had frozen solid. Scrape, the cold metallic friction sound echoed from behind, nearly making Ning Chushui's scalp explode. It was the sound of knives and forks scraping against each other, right behind him, and it was getting closer. At the same time, the ventilation window in front suddenly burst open from the wind. The cold wind, carrying a thick, bloody stench, continuously assaulted Ning Chushui's nose and lungs. Fear spread through his entire body. Was he about to die? In that moment, an indescribable terror surged like a tidal wave, drowning Ning Chushui. He raised his hand, instinctively wanting to turn on the light. Light. He needed light. Only light could dispel this terrifying darkness. But just as Ning Chushui's hand was about to touch the light switch, he suddenly stopped. In his mind, a part of the mysterious letter he had received earlier abruptly surfaced. Do not light a lamp in the wind. Do not burn a candle in the rain. Do not go upstairs by day. Do not close your eyes by night. Do not light a lamp in the wind. Ning Chishui gritted his teeth, enduring the indescribable fear in his heart, and did not turn on the light. He pulled his hand back, step by step resisting the bone-piercing chill wind that carried the stench of blood, moving forward down the corridor. The terrifying metallic scraping sound seemed to be right next to his ear, relentlessly grating on his nerves. It felt as though something behind him could plunge sharp knives and forks into his body at any moment, tearing him apart. Ning Chishui took a deep breath, mustered all his courage, clenched his fists, and ignored the horrifying metallic scraping behind him, advancing step by step. He was gambling that he hadn't triggered the death condition, and that the thing behind him couldn't touch him. 1 step, 2 steps. At this moment, Ning Chushui felt his adrenaline spike to its absolute limit. Every step was a severe test of his psyche, but he dared not run, nor could he. The wind blew with a biting cold, as if piercing through skin and flesh, straight into his muscles and marrow. His entire body went rigid. Fortunately, Ning Chushui had gambled correctly. The terrifying thing behind him seemed to be blocked by something, unable to harm him. When he finally reached his room door and grasped the handle, the sharp metallic scraping behind him abruptly ceased. The bloody wind in the corridor gradually stopped. By the faint moonlight, Ning Chushui saw the shutters at the end of the hallway, closed tight, without him knowing when. Was it just an illusion? Ning Chushui panted, his eyes narrowing slightly. The bone-piercing chill at his back also slowly faded, as if the thing that had been following him all this time had left. Ning Chushui felt his mind go blank. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, only then realizing his clothes were soaked with sweat. In the darkness, Liu Renfeng's deep voice rang out, tinged with fear. Xiao Ge, are you all right? Clearly, he too had just heard the horrifying metallic scraping from the corridor. Ning Chushui shook his head. I'm fine. Liu Renfeng stepped forward, fumbling for Ning Chushui's hand in the dark. Confirming that Ning Chushui still had the warmth of a living person, he let out a sigh of relief and said with admiration, Xiao Ge, you're really too incredible. I thought you wouldn't make it back. Just now, outside the corridor was there. Ning Chushui nodded. It appeared. Liu Renfeng's eyes widened in disbelief. It didn't kill you? Ning Chushui paused for a moment, then said, It can't kill us indiscriminately. Only when we trigger the death condition can it act against us. Liu Renfeng thought back to the earlier events, and a surge of complex emotions welled up inside him. Then, Xiao Ge, do you know what the death condition is? Ning Shui said quietly. I know part of it. I already told you. But that's not all the death conditions. How many there are exactly, only it knows. What we need to do now is quickly investigate the truth. Liu Renfeng breathed heavily. But even if we find out the truth, it won't help much with survival, will it? Ning Chushui was silent for a moment. The truth must come with a way to deal with it. Remember what that man in the suit told us earlier? The world behind the Crimson Door has more than one path to survival. It may seem dangerous, but it's not impossible to fight back. Besides, the woman in the red dress warned us not to enter the 3rd floor of the villa. Perhaps that place is crucial. Liu Renfeng's gaze wavered. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, Fine. Xiao Ge, whenever you say we go, I'll go with you. At worst, we die together. At least we'll have company. Wait. The two waited in the room for a long time, until midnight. The sound of metal scraping echoed from the hallway outside the door, a sound that made one's hair stand on end. Both of them knew that was the sound of knives and forks scraping. The thing from the third floor had come down to feed again. This time, who would it be? Scrape, scrape, scrape. The scraping grew closer and closer. Liu Renfeng's heart pounded faster and faster. He glanced at Ning Shui, who was sitting beside him, and saw he was drinking tea. Liu Renfeng froze. Then, once again, he marveled at Ning Shui's composure. Xiaoge, in a situation like this, being able to leisurely sip tea, you're the first I've ever met. Liu Renfeng lowered his voice to the faintest whisper. Ning Shui set down his teacup. I'm nervous too. But everyone shows their nervousness differently. When I'm tense, I like to eat or drink something. Even so, his voice was steady. Almost no tremor could be heard. Outside the door, the horrifying sound stopped right in front of their room. The scraping of knives and forks rang out again and again, as if a starving ghost stood at the door, staring at them with ravenous hunger. Liu Renfeng felt utterly useless, but his palms were already drenched in sweat. He was truly terrified, afraid that the dreadful thing outside would burst in, but thankfully what he imagined did not happen. The ghost paused before their door for a while, as if realizing it could do nothing to them, and shifted its target to another room. This time, it was exactly like last night. That sound vanished before the door of the room next to theirs. About 5 minutes later, Ning Shui pressed his ear to the door and heard nothing. He gently pushed the door open a crack. After observing for a moment, he pushed it wider, stuck half his head out, and looked left and right down the pitch-black, silent hallway. Aside from the open vent at the end of the corridor and the cold wind blowing through, there was nothing else in the hallway. Now's the time, let's go. Ning Shui waved at Liu Renfeng. The two crept out of the door, moving cautiously through the darkness toward the stairs. The two reached the top of the stairs. The iron door leading to the third floor had been forced open, and a thick, foul stench hit their noses. The smell was exactly like that of the liquid drops in their room, the odor of a decomposing corpse. Liu Renfeng covered his nose and frowned. His stomach churned. He swallowed hard, fighting back the nausea, and followed Ning Shui up to the third floor. The moment his foot touched the landing, the stench grew even more suffocating. Liu Renfeng couldn't take it anymore. His stomach cramped violently. Finally, he collapsed to his knees and vomited uncontrollably. Ugh! Liu Renfeng retched until his face turned pale. Ning Shui patted his back gently. Only after emptying the contents of his stomach did Liu Renfeng feel a little better. The two men moved forward along the pitch-black hallway. The floor was strangely slick. Even without light, Liu Renfeng could guess what that slimy substance underfoot was. It was decomposition fluid from corpses. The entire third floor was awash in this disgusting, slippery fluid. Both of them were horrified. How many corpses would it take to produce such a massive amount of decomposition fluid, enough to coat an entire floor? Just as I thought. Ning Shui narrowed his eyes. Though the stench was unpleasant to him, it wasn't enough to make him nauseous like Liu Renfeng. Before entering this place, he had already guessed the situation. Stepping through the vile, slimy fluid, the two approached the room where the stench was most concentrated. Ning Shui carefully opened the door. The sight before them was shocking. The room was dimly lit by moonlight. Inside, it was piled high with corpses. Some bodies were relatively fresh, their flesh and blood still wet. Others were reduced to bare, dry skeletons. The one thing they all had in common was that their heads remained intact. The faces of these corpses wore eerie smiles, staring at the two men as if in invitation. Stay calm. Liu Renfeng covered his mouth and took a step back, his whole body trembling. He looked at the other rooms, as if realizing something. Trembling, he pushed open the remaining doors. "Oh my God!" he gasped in terror. Sure enough, every room was filled with corpses. The internal organs of these bodies had all been removed. Their bodies were covered in knife and tool wounds, proving that something had been eating them. The bodies of Wang Yuning and Yamo were among them. Liu Renfeng trembled as he leaned against the wall, slowly sliding down to sit. His face was whiter than paper. So, that decomposition fluid dripping from the ceiling of our room came from here. But Why are there so many corpses? Could it be? Ning Shui looked out the window toward the villa complex shrouded in darkness. Perhaps all the residents of this villa complex are in here. Liu Renfeng swallowed hard. Cold sweat poured from him like a shower. The demon hiding in this villa had eaten all the residents of the complex. We might not be the first group of people to come here and take care of the old woman. There are so many rooms on the lower floors, all designed separately. They were probably for the previous caretakers. Every word Ning Shui spoke made Liu Renfeng's heart pound wildly. Xiao Ge, maybe we should get out of here quickly. If it comes back, Liu Renfeng didn't finish his sentence, but Ning Shui understood his meaning. We're almost at the truth now. Big beard. Don't you want to know what it was that devoured everyone in this villa? Liu Renfeng froze, then let out a bitter laugh. Xiao Ge, I've realized you really aren't afraid of death. Is the truth more important than your own life? Ning Shui shot back. If we leave here, are you sure we can even escape this villa, this entire estate? Who knows what other killing rules it has? Maybe from the moment we stepped into this villa, we triggered its killing rule. We've just been lucky. Our turn hasn't come yet. Besides, it's already come downstairs hunting for prey. It could be right beside us right now. As the body count rises, we're only getting more dangerous. Liu Renfeng fell silent, his expression pensive. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, Fine, I trust you. They walked through rooms piled with corpses, heading to the innermost chamber. It was a study, its door clean, no bloodstains, looking utterly out of place on this death-ridden third floor. The two exchanged a glance, their eyes glinting. This might be it. They carefully opened the door. A gust of dusty air hit them in the face. The room wasn't large. Inside lay a skeleton, long decayed. Based on its size and shape, it was clearly a girl around 14 or 15 years old. In the skeleton's arms was a small teddy bear. The bear's eyes were pitch black, as if staring straight at them. Ning Shui cautiously approached, examining the skeleton closely. This girl wasn't eaten. Her ribs, sternum, neck bones, no marks from any blade. Earlier, when inspecting the bodies of Wang Yuning and Yamo, he'd noticed that while their organs and some muscles had been consumed, the bones still bore cut marks from knives. But this skeleton had none. Not eaten? Then how did she die? Liu Renfeng grew even more puzzled. Ning Shui studied the skeleton for a long time. Most likely, starvation or dehydration. That demon probably couldn't enter this room, but this girl couldn't leave either, trapped in here. With no food or water, most people would die within 3 days. The window is sealed with iron bars, thick with rust, proving they were installed a long time ago. Maybe when she was little, her family worried she'd climb out and fall, so they put those bars up. But they probably never imagined those very bars would steal her last chance at survival. Hearing Ning Shui's words, Liu Renfeng felt a chill run down his spine. He could imagine the girl's despair while she was still alive. Outside, a terrifying man-eating demon. Inside, a room with no escape. In the end, she could only die hopelessly in this very room. Hey, Xiao Ge, look, behind that corpse, there's something there. Ning Shui also noticed the strange object behind the body. He reached out, groping through the darkness, and retrieved a notebook. Thick dust clung to it, imprinted with someone's desperate fingerprints. He flipped it open. Under the dim moonlight, the two of them read the hastily scrawled lines. June 1st, 2037. Grandpa called. He said Grandma missed Mom, wanted her to come home, but for some reason, Mom refused outright, even though she usually cares so much about Grandma. June 9th, 20, overcast. Mom didn't go to work. She seems terrified. What is she so afraid of? June 12th, 2037, overcast. These past few days, Mom has been crying in secret. I asked her why. She wouldn't say a word. She just held me tight, too tight. I could barely breathe. June 21st, 2037. Grandma passed away. Grandpa called to tell Mom. After she hung up, her face was ashen. She suddenly left the house and didn't return until late. She gave me a jade pendant, blood red. She told me to hang it by the window, and no matter what happened, never take it down. June 22nd, 2037. Heavy rain. Mom packed her bags and left with Dad. They only left me behind and Aunt Wang, the housekeeper who's taken care of me for years. Before they left, they warned me and Aunt Wang, if we ever saw them come back, we must not open the door. July 12th, 20, Mom came back. I remembered what they said, but I still opened the door. I miss them so much. August 1st, 2037, heavy rain. Something's wrong, it isn't Mom. August 15th, 2037. I'm not a good child. I didn't listen to my parents. I let that terrifying thing inside. Now it's outside. I'm so hungry, so thirsty, but I don't dare go out. Am I going to die? What should I do? The diary ended there. Its contents sent a chill down their spines. The two exchanged glances, silent for a long time. So, the old woman on the second floor wasn't the villa owner's mother. She was the housekeeper. Liu Renfeng swallowed hard. Then, that monster. Ning Chushui closed the diary, looked at Liu Renfeng and said, "In the shoe cabinet by the entrance there were many newly bought women's shoes. I thought, a woman who loved shoes that much, if she were traveling, wouldn't she have taken a few pairs with her?" Liu Renfeng froze. They had passed that shoe cabinet countless times, but no one had noticed that detail. Ning Chushui's observation skills were terrifying. Besides, don't you want to know what those 3 words the old woman kept repeating actually were? Liu Renfeng snapped back to reality, staring at Ning Chushui. What were they? Under the pale moonlight, Ning Chushui locked eyes with Liu Renfeng and slowly spoke the truth that sent a chill down his spine. The old woman on the second floor wasn't saying, "The meat doesn't taste right." She was trying to tell us, "The person hasn't left." Liu Renfeng held his breath, his eyes wide with horror. "Xiaoge, you mean the woman in the red dress we saw that day? She never left?" Ning Chushui slowly nodded. "That's right. She never left. She's probably hiding somewhere nearby, and she ate that little girl." Thump! Liu Renfeng's legs gave out and he collapsed to the floor. "Damn it." He trembled, his entire body ice cold. Ning Chushui walked to the window, reaching out to touch the blood-colored jade piece. Whatever it was, whatever material it was made of, none of that mattered. What mattered was, this jade piece could stop that terrifying thing, that thing no one could even identify. Suddenly a thought struck him. He turned to Liu Renfeng and said, "Big Beard, hurry up. We'll split up. You go down to the kitchen on the first floor, pretend to prepare ingredients for cooking as much as you can." Liu Renfeng was stunned. Then what about you?" Ning Chushui replied, "I'll go to the second floor and bring the old lady down here." Liu Renfeng immediately understood Ning Chushui's plan. "Are we going to run into that monster?" Ning Chushui looked at him, his gaze unwavering. "We have to take the risk. There aren't many of us left, and we can only sneak in here when it goes downstairs to hunt. If we miss tonight, it won't be this easy to bring the old lady and the food in here again." Hearing this, Liu Renfeng gritted his teeth. Fine. At this point, there was no turning back. He trusted Ning Chushui completely. If it weren't for Ning Chushui, he might have died on the very first night. Now, he had no choice but to gamble. The two carefully left the room. After confirming that the monster hadn't returned, they quickly split up. Liu Renfeng ran down to the kitchen on the first floor. The kitchen was shrouded in darkness, but he remembered Ning Chushui's instructions. No lights. Fortunately, he had worked here during the day, so he remembered where each ingredient was kept. Still, Liu Renfeng's hands were shaking violently. In the darkness, it felt like countless eyes were watching him. From the dark corners, from behind the doors, it seemed like a terrifying ghostly figure could appear at any moment and devour him. Hurry up. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Cold sweat poured down his forehead like rain. Soon, Liu Renfeng had packed 3 bags full of food. He hoisted them onto his back and sprinted up the stairs. Ning Chushui was also carrying the old lady upstairs. She was quite heavy, around 70 kilograms. If Ning Chushui weren't stronger than the average person, he wouldn't have been able to carry her. "Go ahead," Ning Chushui urged when he saw Liu Renfeng pause in the hallway. Liu Renfeng nodded, carrying the 3 bags of food up to the 3rd floor. Ning Chushui hurried after him. The floor on the 3rd floor was sticky and slippery. He couldn't move quickly, or he'd fall. The old lady was frail. If she fell, who knew what would happen? Hurry up! Reaching the third floor, Ning Chushui rushed toward the office. Liu Renfeng was already standing at the door, peeking around cautiously. Suddenly, his eyes flew wide in terror, as if he had seen something unspeakable. Liu Renfeng waved frantically at Ning Chushui, his voice trembling as he screamed, "Hurry, Xiao Ge! It's chasing us!" A bone-piercing chill shot down Ning Chushui's spine. Scrape, 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 scrape. The horrifying sound of knives and forks grinding together echoed from behind. Gritting his teeth, Ning Chushui lunged forward like a moth diving into a flame. At this moment, he couldn't care less if he fell. He knew, if he hesitated even a second longer, death would be certain. An icy frost-like breath spread through the pale moonlight, enveloping Ning Chushui. He dared not turn his head. He couldn't turn his head. "Faster! I have to be faster!" He roared inwardly, clenching his jaw, sprinting with all his might toward the door. But no matter how hard he pushed, the dreadful scraping of the knife and fork grew closer. This is bad, carrying someone on his back. He could never outrun that monster. Just 5 steps from the door, a cold, deathly white hand suddenly shot out from behind, grabbing Ning Chushui by the neck. "Where do you think you're going?" A woman's voice, venomous and icy, hissed into his ear. Ning Chushui's blood ran cold. His strength drained away. He slowed down, just as despair took hold and he awaited the inevitable strike. A figure burst out from the office, delivering a powerful blow to that pale arm. "Ah!" A piercing, agonized shriek tore through the air. With a puff of white smoke, the hand released its grip. At the same moment, another warm hand seized Ning Chushui, yanking him into the office. Once inside, Liu Renfeng scrambled to the window, frantically hanging the blood-red jade pendant in place. Only then did he collapse to the floor, his legs shaking violently. "Ah!" The woman in the red dress howled in maddened fury. She crawled to the office door, glaring at the 2 men with eyes full of venom. Now, in the moonlight, they could finally see her face clearly. What horrifying face it was! Her mouth was ripped open to her ears, rows of sharp, jagged teeth crammed inside her maw, flesh and hair rotting within, barely visible. Her eyes were spider-webbed with cracks, as if they might shatter at any moment. Her limbs were twice as long as a normal person's, her whole body contorted like a giant spider clinging to the wall. In her hand, she clutched a blood-stained knife, sharp enough to make your skin crawl. "Damn it! What the hell is that thing?" Liu Renfeng felt like his heart had stopped. Curses spilled from his lips uncontrollably. The woman in red shrieked madly, pounding against the door again and again, as if desperate to break in. But something seemed to hold her back. Finally, she could only glare at them, snarling in rage, before slinking away. "So close! So close!" Ning Chushui had nearly died at the hands of that monstrous woman. If Liu Renfeng hadn't rushed out at the critical moment, wielding the blood jade and risking everything to help, Ning Chushui would have surely perished. "Thank you." Ning Chushui sat cross-legged on the ground, one hand propped on his knee, panting heavily. That was truly perilous. Liu Renfeng patted his own trembling legs, shaking his head as he said, "I should be the one thanking you. If you hadn't brought me here, sooner or later, I would have been devoured by that terrifying woman." After speaking, he laughed again. It was the uncontainable joy of having escaped death. Liu Renfeng, like a patient with schizophrenia, lay face down on the ground, laughing loudly. It was a long time before he returned to normal. "By the way, Xiao Ge, what about the others?" Liu Renfeng helped the old woman up, confirmed she had no major issues, and then asked Ning Chushui. The latter's eyes flickered slightly. "We absolutely cannot go out now. It's too dangerous outside. Wait until tomorrow to see if we can contact them from the 3rd floor. If we really can't, then we've done all we could." To the death of strangers, Ning Chushui seemed utterly indifferent. Of course, he didn't mind helping those people, especially since they held no grudge against him. But the prerequisite was that he wouldn't put himself in danger. After all, when he had asked these people if they were willing to risk their lives with him to seek the truth, none of them had stepped forward. Going through danger himself while others reaped the rewards, no one would be happy about that. He was not a merciful monk, saving all sentient beings. "By the way, Xiao Ge, I have one more question." Liu Renfeng, having mostly recovered, seemed to remember something. "Go ahead." "You How did you know the killing rule of that ghost in the villa? At this question, Ning Chushui fell silent for a long time in the darkness. Because before I got on the bus, I received an anonymous letter. A letter? Yes, inside the letter was a photo and a few sentences. With that, Ning Chushui slowly recited those sentences. The wind does not light the lamp, the rain does not burn the candle. By day, do not ascend the stairs. By night, do not close your eyes. Hearing these 4 lines, Liu Renfeng's eyes widened, an expression of disbelief spreading across his face. Xiaoge, you're incredible. You have a mastermind backing you. So, what about that photo? Ning Chushui glanced at him, his eyes shifting slightly. You want to see it? Liu Renfeng was stunned. What, is it inconvenient? Before he could finish, he saw Ning Chushui reach into his black checkered shirt and pull out a slightly yellowed photo, turning the front side toward him. After seeing that photo, his pupils suddenly contracted. No way. Under the moonlight, Liu Renfeng saw that it was a photo of a person. And the person in the photo was none other than himself, Liu Renfeng. The two stared at each other, separated only by a thin photo, silent for a long time. Liu Renfeng saw his own photo, but he did not see the writing on the back. That's right. Behind this yellowed old photograph, there was also a line of black text. A friend worth knowing, but 10,000 wise. Liu Renfeng reached out, wanting to take it for a closer look, but Ning Chushui had already pulled the photo back, smiling at him. Surprising, isn't it? I was surprised too. At first, I thought it was just a malicious prank, or maybe someone filled in the wrong recipient. But when I woke up on that bus and saw you, I realized things weren't that simple. That driverless bus, that mysterious thick fog, that strange crimson door, and all of us on the bus. Behind all of this, there must be an invisible hand pulling the strings. Liu Renfeng let out a bitter laugh. Xiaoge, forgive me for being blunt, but in the real world, I doubt anyone has the power to do all this. You've seen the situation outside. That's simply not something human strength could accomplish. Ning Chushui fell silent. He didn't continue arguing about it. But that mysterious letter, every single word on it had come true so far. The strange crimson door, the bizarre killing rules, and a friend he didn't even know, yet who would risk his life to save him. This was a terrifying thought, as if someone was always watching him from somewhere he couldn't see. The night passed without another word. Neither of them had gotten much sleep the first night, and after all that tension, exhaustion crashed over them like a tide once they calmed down. Then dawn of the next day arrived, and a blood-curdling scream from the second floor shattered the villa's silence. Clearly, someone else had died. But what horrified the survivors on the second floor even more wasn't just waking up to find a fresh corpse. It was that 3 people had gone missing. Among them, besides Ning Chushui, who was everyone's pillar of strength, there was also a key mission figure. After all, the task the Crimson Door had given them was to take care of the old woman in bed for 5 days. Now that she was gone, what was there left to take care of? Ning Shui and Liu Renfeng heard the commotion from the second floor and learned that the man who died last night was named Bei Dao. He had been eaten. Sob, sob, sob. They're all gone. Did they all get? Sob, sob. I'm so scared. I don't want to die here. Yan Yuping's choked sobs drifted up from downstairs. Liu Renfeng shouted toward the window, trying to pass the news down, but it seemed their voices were trapped on the 3rd floor. No matter how hoarse he got, no one came to rescue them. Ah, no one even heard him. Enough. Stop yelling. Seeing Liu Renfeng's stubborn refusal to give up, Ning Chushui shook his head slightly. Liu Renfeng felt a twinge of irritation at Ning Chushui's coldness. Xiaoge, aren't you a doctor? There are 2 living people down there, and we're just abandoning them. Isn't that a bit much? Ning Chushui closed his eyes and said, I may be a veterinarian, but I have 3 rules for who I don't treat. Liu Renfeng was stunned. 3 rules? What 3 rules? Ning Chushui said, I don't treat animals that are certain to die. It wastes my effort. I don't treat animals that are on the verge of death. It damages my lifespan. I don't treat animals with chronic illnesses. They might pass bad diseases to me. Liu Renfeng almost laughed out loud. You're joking, right? You're a veterinarian. If you won't treat this or that, won't you starve to death? Ning Chushui gave a faint smile. I am a veterinarian, but I'm not just a veterinarian. Who told you I only make a living by healing pets? Liu Renfeng threw up his hands. Fine, fine. So what kind of animals will you treat? Ning Chishui answered casually. The ones I like the look of. Even if I know I can't save them, I'll give it my all, even if it costs me dearly. Liu Renfeng looked at Ning Chishui with a hint of surprise, then smiled. This guy, his personality was really interesting. His smile fading, Liu Renfeng thought of something else. He suddenly started drawing on the wall of the room, then used the curtain to tie up the book he'd written on, and began tapping it incessantly against the window downstairs. If his voice couldn't carry up to the second floor, then the sound coming from the second floor. Could it attract their attention? But the result was, he'd only tapped twice when that sturdy curtain snapped. Liu Renfeng pulled the remaining half of the curtain back, carefully testing its strength with a tug, muttering to himself, "That's not right. It was so solid. How could it break so easily?" He tried several more times, but the result was always the same. This strange phenomenon sent a chill down Liu Renfeng's spine. He felt a vague sense of unease, as if he were being watched, and so he gave up trying to send a signal downstairs. "What's wrong?" Ning Chishui asked casually, seeing him finally fall silent. Liu Renfeng broke out in a cold sweat. "I feel like something is staring at me. If I keep doing this..." He didn't finish the sentence, but Ning Chishui understood perfectly. Clearly, the rules of the villa isolated the third floor from the others. If they tried to send a message from the third floor down to the second or first, that would be breaking the rules of the world behind the Crimson Door, and they would face a terrible misfortune. Highs. This time, they really can only rely on the will of heaven. He sighed, then sat down beside the skeleton by the window. He picked up the diary from its hand, flipped through it for a moment, and said, "You, what do you think that monster outside really is?" Ning Chishui thought for a moment. From what's recorded in this diary, that terrifying woman outside must be connected to some little girl, and her parents definitely know something. But as for the specifics, we can't know. Perhaps, after all this is over, we can ask that man in the suit when we get back. Liu Renfeng nodded slightly. 3 days passed, and they ate and slept within that single room. Fortunately, food and water were relatively plentiful, enough to sustain life. As for the 2 survivors downstairs, they ultimately couldn't endure those final 3 days. On the night of the 3rd day, She Gui's was also killed and devoured by the female ghost in the villa, leaving only Yan Yuping, her spirit shattered by sheer terror. She fled the villa, vanishing into the curtain of rain. Her fate, needless to say, was sealed. Liu Renfeng felt a pang of discomfort. After all, he had lived alongside these people for a time, and they weren't bad sorts, but that discomfort faded quickly with time. On the midnight of the 5th day, the 2 were fast asleep when a sudden car horn blared outside the window, jolting them awake. They scrambled to their feet, standing by the window, peering out into the rain. There, parked outside the villa, was a bus, honking its horn. This bus, they knew it well. It was the very one that had carried them into the mist that day. "Ah, the bus is here! The bus is here! But, Xiaoge, how do we get out?" Liu Renfeng stared at the bus stopped before the dilapidated villa gate, crying out in joy, but as he turned his head, that joy was snuffed out by a bone-piercing chill. He saw that terrifying, gaunt woman in red, standing at their gate, staring at them with a ravenous hunger. It seemed this woman in red knew they wanted to leave. "We have to think of something fast! That bus absolutely will not wait for us long." Ning Chishui's eyes flickered as he searched frantically for a tool. Just as he grew desperate, ready to smash the iron bars on the window, the old woman lying nearby spoke up. Her voice was weak, but the 2, being close, could hear every word. "Young men, push me outside." The 2 slowly lowered their heads, looking at the old woman. Her expression was unexpectedly calm, her eyes regaining a brief clarity. It seemed that after enduring such prolonged torment, she had finally considered ending it all. When it's eating something, it can't do anything else. Push me out while it eats me. You seize the chance to leave and never come back. Liu Renfeng's eyes widened. "How can we..." "Good heavens, Xiaoge, you're really gonna push her out?" Ning Chishui replied, "Push her out and 1 person dies. Don't push her out, and 3 people die." The old woman managed a smile. "He's right. I won't blame you. Living for me is truly too painful. Consider it a good deed. Help me find release." Hearing this, Liu Renfeng abandoned his hesitation. Gritting his teeth, he joined Ning Chishui in pushing the old woman out before the red-clad female ghost. At first, the woman in red had no intention of eating the old woman. She needed to keep her alive to continue fishing. But having gone 2 days without food, she simply couldn't resist the fresh meat delivered right to her mouth. He watched as she held the plate in her hand and drove it hard into the old woman's chest and stomach. What followed was a scene of utter brutality, one that made Liu Renfeng sick to his stomach. "Move!" Ning Chishui grabbed the blood jade from the windowsill, and with Liu Renfeng, they darted past the feasting female ghost like a gust of wind. A bone-piercing chill radiated from the ghost's venomous glare, turning their legs to jelly. Luckily, the old woman hadn't lied to them. When the female ghost was eating, she couldn't do anything else. "Faster!" Ning Chishui glanced back and shouted. "She eats fast." Liu Renfeng, running ahead, broke out in a cold sweat. Gritting his teeth, he sprinted like a madman down the stairs. He practically threw himself against the villa's front door, shoving it open. The yellow headlights of the bus ahead shone like a lifeline from heaven, guiding their path. Just as Ning Chishui also burst out of the villa door, a terrifying, guttural roar erupted from the 3rd floor. Immediately after, a series of crashing sounds echoed from inside. That red-clad female ghost was chasing them. "Xiaoge, hurry! Faster!" Li Renfeng didn't board the bus immediately. Instead, he stood at the door, shouting at Ning Chishui. The moment Ning Chishui reached the door, Li Renfeng reached out and yanked him inside the bus. Right behind them, the horrifying female ghost, crawling and writhing on the ground like a spider, was only a few steps away from Ning Chishui. But as soon as Ning Chishui was on the bus, the ghost suddenly stopped. It could only howl in helpless fury at the 2 people inside. Yet, it only dared to roar a few times. It didn't dare come near the bus. It seemed that this ferocious red-clad female ghost was deeply wary of the bus they were riding. Finally, it could only slowly turn around and vanish into the rain, heading back toward the old villa. Back in their seats on this driverless bus, Ning Chishui and Liu Renfeng finally let out a sigh of relief. We made it?" Big-beard Liu Renfeng panted, staring through the window at the distant spot where the terrifying, gaunt female ghost had entered the villa. Only then did he realize his legs felt like jelly. "Yes," Ning Chishui replied. Then, both fell silent. 5 days had passed. Of the 7 people originally on this bus, only 2 remained. Liu Renfeng felt a nameless sorrow in his heart. He didn't have deep feelings for the others, but watching them die so horribly before his eyes, it was hard not to feel a pang of grief. Because he, too, had been that close to death. If it hadn't been for Ning Chishui, his fate would have been no different from the others. Not long after they boarded, the bus doors closed and the vehicle slowly began to move. Soon, they passed through the rain and entered the mist once more. Both of them drifted off to sleep on the bus. When they woke again, it was early the next morning. Ning Chishui stretched and looked out the window. They had arrived outside the small courtyard of the Black Villa. "Hey, Big Beard, wake up!" Ning Chishui shook Liu Renfeng. He jolted awake and screamed, "Ghosts! The ghosts are here! Run!" Ning Chishui silently watched the panicked Liu Renfeng, thinking to himself how pitiful this guy was. Not only did he have to be chased by ghosts in the Crimson Door's mission, but he also had to work overtime in his dreams. After confirming that the person beside him was Ning Chishui, Liu Renfeng wiped the sweat off his face and gasped, "Xiaoge, you scared me half to death." Ning Chishui pointed at the black courtyard outside and said, "Get out of the car. We've arrived." The 2 got out of the car one after another and stepped into that black villa. When they entered the hall again, they found only one person left there. It was that young man with an exceptionally beautiful appearance. He looked like a doll. Fair, rosy skin, a small and slender frame. If he didn't open his mouth to speak, no one would ever guess he was a boy. "Why are you the only one here?" Liu Renfeng frowned. Seeing the 2 return from behind the Crimson Door, the young man's attitude was much warmer than before. Uncle Yan had something to take care of and went back to the front world. Sister Xiao Xiao is taking the newcomer through the crimson door, and there's one more person cooking in the kitchen. Ning Chu Shui's eyes flickered. Can we go back to the front world? The young man poked at the charcoal in the stove. Why not? If you can come here by bus, naturally you can go back by bus. Sigh. After saying that, the young man sighed and brushed his long hair. I hate this part the most. Every time a newcomer arrives, I have to explain so much. My mouth goes dry. What's worse is, sometimes I tell them the rules today, and they're dead by next week. But since you two managed to survive and return from the Crimson Door, if you have any questions, ask now while you can. The two exchanged glances. After a moment of thought, Ning Chu Shui asked, "What's the deal with the Crimson Door and the mist?" The young man said, "It's a curse. We are all cursed people. The mist is a separate world, isolated from the outside. You can only enter it by bus within the mist world. Our villa complex is called the Ghost Dwelling. Like ours, this mist world has many similar places, and many crimson doors as well. Every so often we have to enter the terrifying world behind the crimson door, complete the tasks written on it, try to survive, and at the same time, collect fragments. When you've gathered all 12 fragments, you can take the completed puzzle, board the bus, and head to the end of the mist world." As the young man spoke, he pointed toward a picture frame in the hall. The two looked over. The puzzle in the frame was half completed. In the picture, there was roughly a decomposing human head. On the forehead, there was even a bloody hole like an eye. It looked utterly grotesque. "What's at the end of the mist world?" Ning Chu Shui asked. The young man shrugged. "I don't know about that either. We've never been there anyway. Also, don't blame us for being so cold earlier. After all, you know, in this world, death is a common thing. If you had a close friend who died after the Crimson Door, you'd definitely feel heartbroken." The young man's expression tightened as he spoke. Was the ghost dwelling before? Ning Chu Shui seemed to grasp something, but before he could finish his question, the young man gave a slight nod. "Right before you arrived, about half a month ago, Uncle Yan's best friend died after the Crimson Door, and Sister Xiao Xiao's best friend, Shan Ji, she followed him in suicide. So everyone's been in a bad mood." The two recalled the heavy atmosphere in the hall when they first entered the ghost dwelling and suddenly understood. "All right, it's almost time to eat. After the meal, if you don't want to stay here anymore, you can wait at the bus stop outside the villa. Wait a week until it's your turn to enter the Crimson Door for the second mission. The bus will come to pick you up early." At the dining table, the four of them sat across from each other in silence, heads down, eating. "To be honest, your cooking isn't very good." Liu Renfeng took a few bites and couldn't help but mutter. Mengjun looked up, glaring coldly at Liu Renfeng. "If you don't like it, you can wash the dishes or cook yourself." Liu Renfeng was a reckless man with a short temper. He wanted to snap back, but when he met Mengjun's gaze, he shrank back. That look in Mengjun's eyes was terrifying. For a split second, Liu Renfeng felt as if a knife was pressed against his throat. He was almost certain this man named Mengjun had killed before. Still, Liu Renfeng wasn't one to back down easily. He stiffened his neck and said, "Fine, I'll cook myself. Let me make this clear. From today on, I, Liu Renfeng, am the head chef here. As long as I'm around, none of you are allowed in the kitchen. Tell me what you want to eat and I'll make it for you." He said it in the toughest tone he could muster. Ning Chu Shui couldn't help but laugh. During the meal, he learned that there were 4 old-timers in the ghost dwelling. Liang Yan was the head of the dwelling and the one who had joined earliest. The young man was named Tian Shun, an orphan who lived with his younger sister, relying on each other. Meng Jun was Liang Yan's close friend from the outside world, a former soldier who had fought on the border. The beautiful girl Bai Xiao Xiao was very mysterious. No one knew anything about her background, only that she was extremely formidable in the outside world. At one point, Ning Chu Shui brought up the female ghost in the red dress from their first Crimson Door mission. But after hearing it, Meng Jun and Tian Shun remained silent, not saying a word. "Hey, why aren't you two saying anything?" Seeing both of them lost in thought, Liu Renfeng couldn't help but speak up. As soon as he finished, Mengjun picked up his bowl and chopsticks and walked into the kitchen. "I'm full." His voice was cold. Both Ning Chushui and Liu Renfeng could clearly sense the shift in Mengjun's attitude. This change was far too abrupt, as if a warm spring had suddenly been swallowed by a freezing winter. "No way, what's wrong with you two? Did we say something taboo?" Liu Renfeng found the sudden change in Tianxun and Mengjun's demeanor strange, as if he had just blurted out something he shouldn't have. Tianxun's face was dark and gloomy. After a long pause, he let out a heavy sigh. "You two, your luck is truly terrible." Ning Chushui and Liu Renfeng exchanged a glance. Ning Chushui frowned and asked, "What do you mean by that?" Tianxun began to explain the terrifying mechanics of the world beyond the Crimson Door. The ghosts inside the Crimson Door are divided into two types. One type is born from the local area. They're called bound spirits. No matter how strong they are, or how deep their resentment runs, once we complete our mission and leave the Crimson Door, our grievances with them are settled. The other type is more special. Even though they are restricted by the rules of the Crimson Door, they are not confined to a single area. After slaughtering all the NPCs there, they will move on to another place to cause havoc. This type of ghost, their resentment is too great. Normally, if you encounter them in a previous Crimson Door, the next Crimson Door will be connected to their story. These kinds of Crimson Doors have a higher difficulty and death rate than ordinary ones. Pausing for a moment, Tianxun spoke with a tone of sympathy. "I don't know what kind of karma you two have stirred up, but your very first Crimson Door already had this type of ghost. No wonder only the two of you survived in the end. But I'm afraid you'll only live this long. I'm not cursing you. Go write your wills and prepare your funeral arrangements. Say your goodbyes to your loved ones and friends properly." Tianxun sighed, picked up his bowls and chopsticks, and walked into the kitchen. It was only then that Ning Chushui and Liu Renfeng understood why the others' attitudes had changed so suddenly, because in their eyes, the two of them were already dead. "Are you saying we can't make it through? If we survived once against that ghost, then we can survive a second time, and a third. They think we won't make it through the next Crimson Door. Well, we'll live just to prove them wrong." Liu Renfeng spoke boldly on the surface, but Ning Chushui could still hear the barely noticeable tremor in his voice. After washing the dishes, Tianxun led the two to their room in the ghost dwelling. Unexpectedly, they were not staying in that villa. Instead, they were in a small, single-story house behind the garden. Although this place was cold, the environment was much more pleasant than that dark, gloomy villa. Tianxun handed them the keys, gave a few instructions, and then went to watch TV in the villa. Even though there was a TV in their room, the screen in the villa was much larger. Still filled with many doubts, Ning Chushui and Liu Renfeng did not return to the old world. Instead, they wanted to wait for the dormitory leader, Liang Yan, to return and ask him about the next Crimson Door. But late into the night, they still saw no one return to the villa. The two finally decided to wait one more day. Midnight. Ning Chushui tossed and turned, unable to sleep, so he stepped into the garden to clear his mind. Then he heard voices drifting from the villa. He frowned, creeping closer to the back door to eavesdrop. Inside, a woman spoke with a man, a deep, steady voice. Ning Chushui recognized that voice, Meng Jun. The woman, though, he had never heard it before. "It must be Bai Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao, are you sure you're not mistaken? What, you don't trust me?" "I don't know the relationship between Yan and Mang. If he finds out Mang's death was caused by someone, he will never let it go." Bai Xiao Xiao started to speak, then suddenly whipped her head around, her gaze cold as she stared toward Ning Chushui. "Who's there? Come out." Ning Chushui stepped out of the shadows. Seeing he was the newcomer in the ghost dwelling, the chill on Bai Xiao Xiao's beautiful face softened just a little. She wore lipstick red, very red, like a fiery phoenix, a stark contrast to her name. "It's late. Why aren't you asleep?" Ning Chushui didn't mind her attitude. He simply replied, "You two aren't asleep either, are you?" He sat down leisurely on the sofa, his eyes fixed on the brazier in the center of the room. His arrival had abruptly cut off their conversation. "What's your name?" Bai Xiao Xiao finally spoke first. "Ning Chushui." How did your first Crimson Door feel?" Ning Chushui grabbed a bottle of beer from the table and took a sip. To be honest, not great. I almost died. Bai Xiao hummed in acknowledgement, offering a perfunctory comfort. That's the world after the Crimson Door. One slip, and you lose your life. But once you've passed the first door, the ones after will be easier to breathe. Before she could finish, Mengjun cut in coldly. There won't be any doors after. Bai Xiao was startled. Mengjun, what do you mean? Mengjun stood up. Ask him yourself. I'm going to bed. With that, he walked away without looking back. Bai Xiao turned to Ning Chushui. He recounted the details of his first Crimson Door. Of course, he hid part of the truth, the mysterious anonymous letter. He only said they had accidentally discovered the death rule. After hearing Ning Chushui's story, Bai Xiao's eyes flickered constantly. It was a complex look, admiration, empathy, and even a hint of regret. Mengjun and Tianxun were right. The red-clothed ghost in your first Crimson Door wasn't an ordinary bound spirit. It was a vengeful ghost, extremely difficult to deal with. Lucky for you, this was your first instance. Its power and killing rules were heavily restricted by the Crimson Door. With your courage and caution, you found the exit in time. Otherwise, you would never have come back alive. Furthermore, your next Crimson Door will definitely be connected to this ghost. If you two can handle it, you might even bring back a ghost artifact from that door. Ning Chushui froze. Ghost artifact? Bai Xiao turned her hand over. A wooden comb, stained with fresh blood, appeared in her small palm. Just like this one. Normally, you can't bring items out of the Crimson Door, but some high-difficulty Crimson Doors contain powerful artifacts, extremely rare, each with a different function. Take my wooden comb, for example. One stroke through your hair, and ghosts can't lock onto you for a full minute. These ghost artifacts can significantly boost our survival rate inside the Crimson Door. Ning Chushui recalled the blood jade he had brought out from his first Crimson Door, lost in thought. You can't bring items out of the Crimson Door, except for ghost artifacts. So, that blood jade must be a ghost artifact too. Bai Xiao noticed Ning Chushui's expression and assumed he was terrified by the next Crimson Door. After a moment's hesitation, she said, Forget it. Our ghost dwelling doesn't have many people left anyway. The recent batches of newcomers are too weak, all wiped out before the third door. This weekend, when you two enter the second Crimson Door, I'll guide you through for free, no charge. Besides, you both have potential worth cultivating. The moment Bai Xiao finished speaking, Ning Chushui remembered that Tianxun had told them she was the one who guided newcomers through the Crimson Door. Is that allowed? Ning Chushui asked, somewhat surprised. Bai Xiao nodded. Newcomers can be guided by veterans through the first 6 Crimson Doors. There's even an entire office dedicated to this work. But these guides usually demand a hefty fee. After all, everyone's human. Even with plenty of experience, entering a low-difficulty Crimson Door can still be dangerous. Ning Chushui nodded in understanding. Risking your life to earn money, asking for a high price, is only natural. Money is just an external thing. Compared to life, it means nothing. Having grasped these points, Ning Chushui rested one night at the ghost dwelling, then took a bus back to the outside world. As soon as he got home, he immediately turned on his computer. A friend named Field Mouse had sent him a message. The message was very brief, couldn't find it. The post office has no record of that anonymous letter at all. The person at the post office told me the letter I was looking for is a letter that doesn't exist. But don't worry, I'll keep an eye out for you. Ning Chushui narrowed his eyes. Field Mouse was his friend, someone very skilled at finding things. Even you can't find it, huh? He murmured. Ding dong. Just as he was lost in thought, the doorbell suddenly rang. Ning Chushui was startled. He stood up and went to open the door. It was the neighbor lady, a middle-aged woman in her 50s named Mu Kui. She was wearing a floral blouse, looking like she'd just come back from a stroll, with a thin sheen of sweat on her forehead. Smiling, she handed Ning Chushui an envelope. Chushui, this is for you. Ning Chushui took the letter, and his eyes suddenly changed. Aunt Mu, where did you get this letter? Mu Kui took out her keys to unlock her own door, answering casually, from down in the mailbox. You're always so forgetful, kid. Every time you come home, remember to check your mailbox, all right? With that, she opened her door and went inside. Ning Shui held the letter and closed the door. He walked into the living room, sat down on the sofa, and stared at the envelope on the coffee table. His breathing grew rapid. The second letter, he tore it open. Indeed, it was still anonymous. But this time, there was no message, only a single photograph. A photograph that left Ning Shui frozen in place. It was a picture of Bai Xiao, still old and yellowed, as if it were many years old. But the Bai Xiao in the photo was clearly the same age as the one he had just met. The smile on her lips was vivid and lifelike, the red of her lipstick, undimmed by time, still as brilliant as ever. Damn it. This time, even the ever-calm Ning Shui couldn't help but curse. This was too bizarre! He flipped the photo over. His fingers trembled slightly. On the back of the photograph was a line of text. She cannot die at your second door. So that's it. A bone-piercing chill ran down Ning Shui's spine. The sender of this letter was watching him from somewhere. But why did he have these photographs, and why was he warning him? What exactly did he want to do? If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to support me.